Am I done yet?
No, keep going. Need more intro music.
Oh fuck. Great debate.
Uh,
Someone give me some drums. Can we get some drums going?
if you
Okay.
use that on your soundtrack, you have to give us royalties or at least give us an attribution. If you don't attribute it, to us, then So it's common. We use the what is it? The common Creative Commons for attribution. Attribution. So, anyways, that was the best introduction we ever had. Thank you, there, Saka. Tonight, I know it's late, but you know what? Screw it. I was being busy all day reading stuff, and one of the things I was really kind of trying to wrap my head around was this concept of the efficacy of belief in epistemic norms, and are we justified to have certain beliefs, regardless if we have enough evidence to support those beliefs, especially empirical type evidence. And there's different types of evidentialism. There's obviously the strict is the moderate. I find myself falling into the moderate. Maybe even sometimes I can even see the reason for something like non-evidentialism. But I wanted to have a discussion with that with Max. Saka got Uriah Heep. I see Uriah Christensen here. Uriah Heep. That's what I'm going to call you from now on. Uriah Heep. EO, General Han Solo, and we're just going to dive right into it. So, hey, you know what? Let's see where it goes. Because, I want to learn this. So this is not like me really talking about this so much. This is you guys explaining to me what these principles are. For example, like Clifford's principle, right? Should we not entertain any beliefs if we don't have evidence for it? Basically, is it wrong always everywhere for anyone to believe anything upon insufficient evidence? So, anyways, who should we start with today? I know if I start with Max, it'll like last like 4 hours. You know what, Wayne? I'll get to you, Max. I promise. So let's start with Wayne. First of all, Wayne, do you know what your epistemic model is with this? Do you know what you hold to as far as evidentialism?
Yeah, I'm an evidentialist. I know you mentioned too. There's moderate and non-evidentialist, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'd be modern because I don't know what non-evidentialism is, unless somebody explains.
The way I understand it, now I'll get into Max. The way I understand non-evidentialism is that not only do we have an obligation to act upon a belief or to hold a particular belief if we don't have evidence, we have a moral or ethical obligation to. Is that too far off the beaten track, Max?
Yeah, pretty much it sums it up.
Well, what? Okay, one of the examples. Okay, go ahead, and I'll give one of the examples given, and then we'll discuss that.
So, from what I remember, during my own epistemology class, an example cited was a sea captain who doesn't really believe that. Well, he essentially ascribes to the evidence that his ship is worthy to sail the seas, even though there isn't enough evidence to support it, because he wants the profit. There's a desirability there, and it's far more practical.
I heard it was a rickety ship. When Clifford did this argument that the ship was rickety, unseaworthy, but the captain believed that it was seaworthy anyways. That's how I know the story. But go ahead.
Oh, right. That basically sums it up. It's usually seen as a conceptual thought experiment as a way to oppose more practical or pragmatic-based philosophies. It was, I think, one of the original targets of this was the American philosopher W.V.O. Quine and his coherentist framework for epistemology.
You just got Sokka excited.
So,
Sokka, do you want to jump in here? Because you are a coherentist.
Well, no, I think that just for the question about like the Clifford's principle there, or the challenge that Clifford put out there, wasn't as much that he had. So the way that he presented this in his essay was that he had a ship that was getting ready for, I think it was like a transatlantic voyage, and it was rickety, it was old, and he believed that, you know what, he thinks, that it'll make it across. I mean, why wouldn't it make it across? Rickety ships have done it before. Even though his ship's rickety, it still has a pretty good chance of getting across there. And so he still sold tickets to it, collected all the money from it, from all the people going, bid farewell to the ship and left. And then it sunk and he collected the money from it. And the question was that, okay, you know what, maybe even though he didn't think that the ship was going to sink, his plan wasn't that he was going to collect the insurance money from it. He felt that he had good enough reasons to believe that the ship would make it across, but it didn't. And because it didn't, the question that comes into play is that did he really have a good reason to believe that his ship was going to make it across?
And
That his belief that his belief that his ship would survive the sail was based on no evidence whatsoever. In fact, most people that would have looked at it would have said that chances are it probably wouldn't. And in that case, Clifford presents us as kind of like that for him to believe something that was incorrect was actually an immoral act. That to base your beliefs on things that are with no good reason would be actually considered morally wrong.
to add to that, the kicker that Clifford actually added to it was that had the ship made it, had the ship actually made the transatlantic journey, would the captain still have been justified or not justified to maintain that belief? Right? I mean, even if it was if his belief was right, he did make it across. Was he justified to believe that, even though it did make it across? That adds a different level to that problem in Clifford's essay.
One kind of prima facie example, problem I have with this kind of thought experiment is, does it really attack the coherentist? Because the coherentist could say, for example, look, yes, I have a web of belief where everything is interconnected and everything in some way justifies another thing. However, if you accept such an outlandish belief as the sea captain in this rickety ship, it would stand in contradiction to other elements that's tied in with your web of belief. So not only would you have to reject that, you'd also have to give a reason why and make up for the fact that you're rejecting things like induction, everything you know about rickety ships, propositions based off of the ethics of risk taking, for example. And when you do that, you realize you're losing far more of your web than what's actually there. So even on a coherentistic ground, I don't really see how this is much of an objection.
The other thing too is that and this is the problem that I think that a lot of people have because they can bring up within coherentist frameworks is that what happens if you have two set of people that have they both have an epistemic framework based off coherentism, and they've come to different conclusions about things. Does this actually challenge the how you can know things within that? And I again, like this is an example where I don't think it would. Is that even if you're regardless of what type of epistemic system you're starting with, there's always going to be the factor of the fallibility of man. That even if you have a perfectly coherent system, there's a chance that there could be something wrong within that, and you leave that option open. There's a couple different ways that people have approached that problem as a challenge. Whether or not there's like one viewpoint is like pluralism. Another one is that oh shoot, I can't remember what it's called right now. But if you have a view and you think that everything's justified, that you can know things in that system, it still doesn't guarantee certainty. That there are things that could be wrong, and I think that's that's always something to bring up. Is that no? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm kind of getting confused here, though, Saka. I mean, I see how it relates to coherentism, but that's a theory of knowledge. With the whole things with the Clifford problem and with dealing with the epistemic norms, we're dealing with the justification for belief, not how we build our epistemological framework per se. So I'm kind of confused of how they're actually dovetailed together like this.
Well, when you're talking about things like the Clifford's problem, it kind of merges in a lot of different factors together between epistemology, ethics, philosophy of mind. There's a lot
he's
of different.
thinking what he knows, right? I mean, he's analyzing what he knows. He's evaluating. Okay, the ship's rickety. Therefore, should I, take the voyage? Should I not? And then he's forming a belief upon that knowledge. Is that how you're kind of interrelating this?
Well, it goes to the point with that it's putting knowledge and ethics kind of into the same category, where if that any act where you can that you think that you know something or you think that you can justify some type of belief based off of poor evidence is what a lot of people would say that that's just irrational. But what these models go on to say is not only is it irrational, it's immoral to actually. So it actually adds a moral frame, a moral spin
Sure,
onto
absolutely.
epistemic questions.
Yes, absolutely. Because the morality was, as Clifford was pointing out, the ship sinking killed, a bunch of people. So I mean, there was a lot of moral factors. Was the risk worth the reward? For his, and I don't mean the reward as in like some benefit to the people, obviously, but the ship's captain, because he wanted the ship to get across, or actually to the people, I should say that there was a risk reward. The people wanted to get across the transatlantic journey, right? And by the way, that was a hypothetical story that Clifford related, but he actually was on a sinking ship. Believe it or not, that's how I think he came up with the story.
May I kind of bring this into the great debate for a bit? Just touch on the philosophy of religion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to tie into the great debate and faith eventually.
Right. There's actually, so in terms of what the term
Wayne,
faith means, pistos, in terms of how Christians understand that could be fairly important. Some Christians believe that faith is something you believe without evidence, or even sometimes contrary to what the evidence states. So this is actually kind of what spurred a few writers from what's called the New Atheist movement. I'm saying what's called. Whether one wants to say that's an appropriate name or not, whatever. Christopher Hitchens himself says, look, the fact that there's this thing we legitimately say you don't need evidence for, you can believe whatever you want, is kind of a justification for all sorts of evil, because it makes evil unchallengeable. It says you can believe it without challenge, and what's more is you can cast violence on those who you believe in and say it's your whole morality. Sam Harris says a similar thing. And this is a problem with what's called fideistic faith, the notion of a faith that cannot be touched. Whereas at least people who accept faith as being either, in some sense, evidence-based, or at least defended along the lines of reason, or claim it's a properly basic belief, like Alvin Plantinga and Reformed epistemologists. At least there's an openness to dialogue and an openness to the fact that reason has something to say in the matter of what you can't believe and how you ought and ought not to behave. And this constant challenge from the outside at least pushes one to respond back, gather evidence, treat your religion as an intellectual pursuit. So there's a question of whether or not that kind of fideistic notion of faith is really a moral thing to do.
Okay.
And one of the things is that like
hang on a second. Can you wait for 1 second? Wayne really wanted to go next, if you may, and then can I get back to you, Saka?
Yeah. What I'm about to say is not going to sound like so eloquently spoken and sophisticated like you guys. But in a simple like layman's term. So Steve, your original question was, is it reasonable to believe in something without evidence? Yes.
Yeah. It's sometimes reasonable to hold beliefs even though we don't have evidence to support those beliefs. And the Clifford essay that is just one example. We'll get into more examples here as we go on.
I guess it would depend on the reasons. And the perfect example, I know a lot of people bring this person up in response to like evidentialism, and they'll say we have so much evidence for etc. But Charles Darwin, when he first came up with his model for evolutionary theory, he didn't have any evidence. He just had good reasons to believe
I think he did have evidence. I mean, he was on the USS Beagle. He had been to the Galapagos. He had he's a naturalist, right? I mean, he studied nature. Before he even formulated his thing, he had evidence.
Let's also not forget that Charles Darwin was not coming up with evolution ex nihilo. There were already evolutionary models in place. For example, Lamarckian evolution, which preceded him.
Right.
And there were already these kinds of connections being built within subspecies. And the problem was what kind of mechanism was being put in place. And, of course, Darwin's the person who, based off of the what he saw in the morphology of the bird specimen in the Galapagos, based his theory on that. And that's been a fairly fruitful enterprise. So of course you start with your hypothesis, and then you develop.
I'm agreeing on that, but I guess what I'm saying is before we had the evidence for evolution as we see it today, Darwin didn't have mountains of evidence like we have now, and so all he had were good reasons to believe what he believed, and then the evidence came later.
What do you mean by good reasons? Do you mean empirical?
I think he had empirical evidence, but that's kind of going down a rabbit trail, though. But I see the point Rain's trying to make, but I think that's kind of diverging from the
That's my
philosophical.
Let me try to put it this way. Now, I think Max might agree with me on this on something like this. Is that I think the pursuit of like things like within presuppositional apologetics, for example, is that we all start with or not we all start, sorry. Within some epistemic frameworks, we start with presuppositions and we try to build off of that. And then what happens if you is in a lot of the presuppositions that we have might be considered self-evident, or that there are a set of presuppositional beliefs that would be considered self-evident beliefs, and they're obvious. They people don't really try to justify them. If you can, you will argue in a circle, but you do have support for them. But then there's other people that will try to shoehorn other presuppositional beliefs in there. So, for example, if you're of a religious faith and you want to start off with a presupposition based on that religious faith, and you say that, okay, this is my starting point, it doesn't need any justification because I believe that it is self-evident. And then you build your entire epistemic framework up there, and in the end, it leads to things that can be considered atrocities. Whether it's beheading of people of another faith, or any type of other act that most rational people would deem as completely immoral. Now, when you go back to it, and you're trying to chart through, how did they come to this conclusion, and they base it off of this presupposition that they think is self-evident. But if you challenge them on it, you realize that they really don't have any real justification. They can't even. It's not even that you're challenging them to justify a presupposition. It's just that the accusation that it's even or the assertion that it's even self-evident is wrong, because there's nothing self-evident about it. And in which case, because they're building their entire epistemic framework on this one belief, and it leads to atrocities in the end, that could be an example right there of starting with being unjustified in even your starting assumption, and then having it turn out to be completely immoral in the end. So the starting position, it could be considered immoral because you're even starting from this position without the justification that would be needed to even support the claim that it's like self-evident or whatever.
All right.
Hey, real quick,
So
can I get a mic check real quick before we continue? I'm gonna do a mic check with this, so I'm gonna do a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't equalize the way I'm running it right this second. I took off my actual equalizer, but I do have another mic here, so I'm gonna use this mic right now, and then I'm gonna switch here in a second. I'm gonna do another mic test, and you guys tell me which one's better, because okay, and then go ahead, Max.
Oh, right now?
1 second.
Okay, switch right now. Okay, so here's my other mic. Is this one better? 1, 2, 3.
Say again, Steve.
One was better.
This one's better, or the other one?
I
Other
prefer
one.
the other one. Other one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you sound tinny and distant.
Yeah, this one's got a little bit more ambient noise in the background.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there. Now you sound like a radio
Yeah,
broadcaster.
you're fine.
All right.
Oh, okay. All right. So there should be a proper distinction made between a proposition being first self-evident. Someone might say that Christianity was a rational thing to believe in the beginning, and they still might continue to do so, based upon the certain conditions. For example, how do you learn anything within your life? Well, first of all, like anything else, you have dependence from epistemic authorities, your parents, a community. You might even see the fruits of the religion in practice. For example, the moral benefits. People who constantly spout off how their religious experience better them as a human being, this sort of thing. And of course, if you're not exposed to the counter evidence, then it's rather understandable how you might be swayed to believe in what you were brought up to believe. I think, and I would extend the same courtesy to a Muslim or a Jew or the people of most practicing religions. Furthermore, there are actually whole schools of defenses, evidence, apologetics that are sold around arguing for the faith, and it doesn't stand contrary to reason that people like that are out there who can take that evidence and use that to properly defend how and what they currently believe. But that's based off of evidence that is empirical and made to persuade. Whereas I think when you touch on presuppositionalism, you're saying that this is something you have to believe in for any and all knowledge, and to believe in anything contrary is just impossible. It's like being programmed to do Science apologetics from the get-go without any notion of change. That, I think, is there strikes me as some level of immorality to it. Like, there are people who do it quite well. Jimmy Stevens is someone who we all interact with. Most people I hear good things from. I generally don't have a problem. But then again, you have people like Josiah, who's a kid who's introduced to this stuff. He sees how much ponage Science and Bergen Kate can do. So I think it comes with not just the epistemic setup, but I also think it comes with the attitude that's with it. If you have like a spirit that's always open to dialogue, debate, persuasion, evangelism in a good-hearted, honest discussion, then I don't think that it's much of a problem, morally speaking. But when you turn a kid like Josiah into what he can be in Hangouts, I have to. I'm fairly swayed to agree with you, Sokka, that such a thing does count as being a sort of immorality.
I, I,
It's
I want to bring it back a little bit from precept for the precept argument real quick, though. I want to bring up, if I can, do kind of like a rejoinder to the aspect of Critch's versus Hitchens, the Hitchens razor, that you had talked about. Matter of fact, Uriah and I were just having this discussion. Well, actually, it was a couple people on the Great Debate Forum. Tyler Durden was involved in it. What that actually means to do that. I mean, I think isn't it kind of based upon Descartes' notion that we have somehow have this obligation to just not evaluate anything without sufficient evidence? I mean, didn't he actually just kind of say that, look at it, we can't actually see something if we can't perceive it, that we should not even evaluate
no,
the proposition? I thought that
Well, again, I mean, but that's I don't really think that's where the challenge is. I think that, like, if you form like a belief and you think that it might be partially unsupported, that it doesn't necessarily mean that that this should be considered an immoral act or that you're wrong there. It's when you have to purposely reject other beliefs to make sure that your other beliefs keep in line. That's where it kind of gets a little bit
let me
more
see where I
hairy.
got that from. One sec.
and also to comment on Descartes. Descartes actually said that a problem with people
Here
getting
you go.
wrong answers is that they don't have the proper foundations, and he thought that a good foundation meant a certain level of certitude.
Mm-hmm.
So and infallibility. This is why he based his whole epistemology on two propositions, which are very hard to deny. The world seems like it is. That means, so for example, this seems like a phone in my face. Even if I'm controlled by an evil demon, the evil demon can make me believe I'm holding a cell phone, but he still has to make me seem like I'm seeing a cell phone, even if it's not the case. It seems
Right,
like
right,
it. It's
right,
a
right. Yeah,
seems.
see, yeah, exactly. Because it doesn't matter if that's a cell phone or not. It seems like it is to you.
Right. And
Yeah.
the second thing is, I think, therefore I am. He can't take away my existence. He has to. There has to be something to exist in order for him to fool that thing into thinking he exists.
He-
So from there, Descartes just goes on making some kind of ontological argument for God's existence, and then proceeding to say, okay, it can't be an evil demon. It really has to be God. God would give me reliable senses, not infallible ones, but certainly reliable. So I think I could rule out any kind of global skepticisms, and from there I could just go on and and have a reliable, not infallible, but reliable
mm-hmm.
basis to build up the sciences, which is the Cartesian method.
Mm-hmm.
It's, of course, people bring in a lot of doubts, such as the big one, the ontological argument that Descartes uses. It's a very hard thing to defend. It's not the only a priori argument for God's existence. I like I have one I like to defend, which is a priori, but um, this is kind of Descartes' modus operandi. He's a hard foundationalist. He's someone who thinks that you need something which is very sturdy and very certain. Um, so there is no need for empirical evidence at the foundation, but later on you want empirical evidence if you want to know things about the world external to yourself.
Yeah. Well, let me read this, and because this deals with that directly. And then do we have should we hold a particular belief with or without evidence? So it says Descartes says in Mediations that when forming a judgment, quote, it is clear by the natural light that perception of intellect should always precede the determination of the will. Descartes maintains we have the obligation to withhold assent from all propositions whose truth we do not clearly and distinctly perceive. Clear and distinct perceptions themselves, by contrast, will produce belief what is this word? Ineluctably. Ineluctably. I don't know what that word means.
Intellectually.
No,
Uh,
Inel. I know what it means. Well, actually, I do what it means by forming it out. Unable to be spoken. I think ineluctably. Yeah.
Ineffably.
It,
Ineffably. Ineffably.
Ineluctably.
All right, new topic for this hangout. What the fuck was that word?
Inel. See, when this is a new word, I'm like fun with it, especially in philosophy, right? Ineluctably, and eluct would be something for elocution, right? For spoken. So I'd assume this means unable to be spoken. I'm just and I'm not even looked up at this word yet, but I'm going to look it up right now. But it says, but anyways, it says continue on. It says. By contrast, Blaise Pascal and Immanuel Kant accepted by the other guy James, by emphasizing that there are very important issues regarding which we do not and cannot have sufficient evidence one way or another, but which deserve our firm assent on practical grounds, nevertheless, which is the non-evidentialism approach. So that's the kind of the key thing to the topic of the hangout. Kind of, are there things that we should assent to accept the proposition, even with no evidence whatsoever, but deserving an assent? Go ahead, and I'll look up this word. I'm just guessing what it means.
Yeah, so a good example of that, Max, and I'm not sure if you agree with Matt, but that's most moral arguments, I think, will fall into that category.
It means
especially
it means unable to be
when
resisted or avoided, inescapable. So there you go.
Because when people approach the discussions for, especially for like moral realists, is that even if you don't accept moral realism, I think that there's a certain kind of a pragmatic application that moral anti-realists will still use when approaching the discussion of what's right and what's wrong.
If someone were to accept hypothetically a pragmatic theory of truth, you actually can resolve the is-ought distinction, which is fairly interesting. Someone who believes in the pragmatic theory, let's say that the way Susan Hack describes it, or I think some kind of approximation, something can be considered true if it's based off of some kind of empirical experience or phenomenon. That's one. If it's coherent, which is two, and also if it is practical, that is, if it helps us gain further knowledge.
So it's pragmatic. Is it pragmatic? I mean, that would be another way.
If someone were to hypothetically develop a system, I once did this, just on a LARP, where you make an empirical, a whole empirical argument for finding new moral propositions to believe in, then you could pragmatically say you're a moral realist in the sense that you think moral propositions are practical ones, just like any other one.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're willing to accept a pragmatic argument of truth, you could say that morality is true, but because it's under the pragmatic theory of truth, it's no different from the sciences or anything found in physics or chemistry or what have you.
So the moral propositions I was just say real quick. The moral propositions are just as valid as any other proposition. That there's actually something to be evaluated there as a moral proposition. Because I mean, all I know about moral propositions is that there's a camp where you can evaluate them, a cognitivist camp, right? And there's a camp where you can't evaluate them, the non-cognitivists, right? Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, so you can decide of truth value to it, right?
Right. So, for example, I think John Locke himself believed that. From what I recall, he was some kind of hedonist. He believed that there were natural laws within the universe, but because God instills everyone a desire to obey Him, moral propositions are just ones that lead us to better obey and fulfill His will. And of course, if you develop a system where you could discover these natural laws over and over again and increase our happiness, for example, then yeah, we could say that is what is considered the good because these propositions can be true. That's why you ought to follow them. But in any case, I don't want to get too bogged down on this.
Well, that's fine, though, but I don't mind that. But how about relating it back to Clifford's principle on the ship?
Right. The question is, The question is, should we just accept?
Right.
This is actually kind of interesting because if one, I
This is
don't think
great. I
one
love
can
this. This is
hold.
fascinating, actually.
No,
I love this
I
stuff.
actually don't think you can hold it. I think you'd have to be a moral realist to accept Clifford's principle. So
Yeah. Well,
there's no.
can I circle around to the point that I was making there real quick?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, and because this goes into like the idea that if you are coming for like Clifford's principle on something like this, where you come to a conclusion that believing in something without sufficient evidence, or believing in something because you stifled your beliefs in other areas, would be considered an immoral act. According to Clifford's principle, it's immoral to base any type of knowledge on something that is really kind of unfounded. And which case, yes, you'd have to assume a system of moral realism in order to do this. But the problem with that is all systems of moral realism, I believe, would fall into the camp of the things that are accepted without good justification.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, unless you want to take, unless you want to give independent evidence for moral realism, you're kind of stuck in that category. Um, there's there's no way out of it.
Let me take a quick question from the audience here. We're getting. I know it's late, so we're not having the bigger audience like we usually get. It's actually pretty small, but it's good enough. But it's not so much. I don't care if one person is watching. I'm fascinated by this topic. But Random Case asked a good question. I think deserves answering. And then I'm going to read a quote that I like in regards to this particular question. He says, "What do you think of all the Christians who offer their personal experience as some sort of evidence for God, but then claim they are not trying to convince anyone despite it usually?" Well, there is such thing as persuasive evidence, right? There's different ways we can persuade people, right? Ethos, logos, and pathos, right? So we can try to appeal to certain emotions of people to persuade them. We also have the epistemic what was the term that you used, Max? I like the way you put it. For the parents that rely upon their knowledge.
Oh, epistemic reliability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, epistemic reliability of the parents. But when it comes to like subjective evidence, stuff that we know that we've experienced, right, that we cannot relate to anybody, I think Thomas Paine really has a great quote on this. He said, this is Revelation, but it still goes to firsthand experience. He says, "It is a contradiction in terms and ideas to call anything a revelation that comes to us secondhand, either verbally or in writing. Revelation is not necessarily limited to the first communication. After this, it is. Oh, excuse me. Revelation is necessarily limited to first communication. After this, it is only an account of something that a person who says it was a revelation made to him, and though he may find himself obligated to believe it, it cannot be incumbent upon me to believe it in the same manner. For it was not a revelation made to me, and I have only his word to take that it was made to him." Now I kind of paraphrase a little bit, but yeah, I mean that to me makes perfectly good sense.
So I would actually disagree. So I think
Don't disagree with that, because I think this makes perfect sense.
I'm going to disagree with Thomas
You're
Paine.
such a fucking theist.
It should be noted that I am not someone who's illiterate in Paine. I actually have uncommon sense in my book. First of all, I think Paine is actually coming about this from what can be considered Enlightenment, liberal, individualist viewpoint. He's someone who sees society as individual first. One is an individual, one is born free. Your attachments are only as important as they benefit you and your rights. Whereas if you look at Revelation, where it stems from in the Middle East, it's a very communitarian society. Your identity, who you are, is what rights you have. It's all attached to the tribe you're associated with. So when someone is given revelation, God is not only giving them the testimony or firsthand witness. One is also giving it to the tribe by extension.
I understand that from a biblical perspective and a tribal perspective 2,000 years ago, but you still have it. There's still an epistemic limit there, Max.
Right. So what?
You're looking from a theological perspective. I'm looking from limitations.
Okay. So, right. But this all goes to what role does the community have in the formation of one's epistemology? and what should we accept from the community, and what is only justified for us to discover on our own. I think that's the question at hand here. And I think that if the community as a whole has something to teach and offer us, then I don't think it's infallible. What I do think is then it's incumbent upon us to respond to the tradition that's established, not the other way around.
Okay, but I know you're going to hate me for this, but I don't read it that way. The way I'm reading, and of course you know far more about this topic than I am, but I'm not incapable of reading things. But the way I'm interpreting it is that what he's saying is that if we have a revelatory thing to ourselves, that the only way we can share it with other people is by verbally telling them about it or giving some kind of indication of what the revelation was. But they have no. Do they have an epistemic duty to believe us, right? I mean, they're getting it as a second account, right? The revelation was not first person, so they have to believe us. But is it revelation at that point?
But the thing with that too, I mean, and I'm not sure whether this fits in or not with what you're saying, whether it just has to do with people that are relaying revelation accounts secondhand or not. But the vast majority of the things that we know are all secondhand.
I agree with you. And the Bible, of course, that'll all be secondary revelation, right? I mean, so I mean, I
not just the Bible. I mean, even with science, with also now we can go and validate certain things afterwards.
right.
But there's a whole degree of things that we have that might not be empirically tested. That that not even related to God claims. Just like a lot of the things that you do day to day in your regular life that are based on things that you know because of secondhand information.
Yeah, I'm not always saying that secondhand information is bad. I'm talking about revelations. Let's supposedly say from a
So
person with a
it has to be a secondhand information from a revelation.
Well, again, I mean, if we have a revelatory thing from a deity, of course, the biblical aspect would be revelation given to the prophets, and then the prophets wrote it down, and it's handed down from generation to generation, to this day. But I think the way Thomas Paine is saying is he's questioning, is that considered revelation, right? It's not. It's not. If it's not firsthand, because we're just relaying something, and then it's incumbent upon the person listening if they want to take it as revelation or not.
Right, but then the question comes down to what can you know? Can you know anything that's not given to you firsthand revelationally? And that has to do with any degree of claims or things that are told you by even people that even if it can't be traced through some type of revelatory means. If you can't take secondhand knowledge for revelation, what can you take secondhand knowledge from?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I don't know.
Also note that Thomas Paine is offering up a definition and then critiquing the definition.
Yes.
Which isn't to say a bad thing
Okay,
necessarily.
fair enough. Right. But okay, go ahead.
That's just the problem with right. But I think Thomas Paine is Paine is only offering us a criticism of that as he understands it, not necessarily as the people 2,000 years ago would understand.
I think you're right. Okay.
And just to throw in one thing, I think we should distinguish maybe revelation about one person and their personal experience, religious experience.
That's what I was going to do.
As opposed to the religious revelation.
Let me do that real quick. Yeah, I'm glad you said it because that's exactly what I wanted to bring it back to. Maybe I'm taking it more too broadly. Maybe it should be more specific, right? That look at because like when Random Case asked the question, look, he said, can I use my subjective experiences to try to convince somebody else that a deity exists? So if a deity is giving me personal revelation of his existence, just my own edification. And I say, hey, look at Saki. I had this magical experience. Jesus appeared to me. Angels, wept in my foot of my bed. He has no choice but to either say I believe you or I don't believe you, kind of thing, right? But I mean, he's not under any kind of obligation to say yes, that was revelation, and therefore I accept that revelation, right, as evidence. Correct.
We're asking this is a general question of testimonial justification, whether or not you're justified in believing in testimony. That's this is a specific case for weird testimony.
Yeah. I agree. I mean,
the way anyone would go about answering that is first give a theory of how you would answer testimony, how you would be justified in believing anybody's testimony for anything, and then show that this specific case is resolved from everything else.
Well,
so, for example,
faith in people, right? And again, I'm taking back the word faith. If you tell me
that's actually how the word faith is used in certain.
Exactly. But I mean, Frank, I think you're a good character, right? I think you're a good moral character person. I think you actually, and sometimes probably a little bit, overly concerned about things. I know you know what I mean by that. We've had our
I know what
discussions
you
about
mean.
this. Yeah. But I mean, you have a good heart, right? And so if you tell me something, I'm going to have faith that, you know what, Frank's probably telling me the truth on it, right? I'm not going to question the veridicalness of that claim, right?
Very weird
Unless it's really
belief.
something way, else. If you say, hey, by the way, Steve, do you know that I'm in constant communication with aliens from Zeta Reticuli? I'd be like, yeah, okay, Frank, I like you, but you're a nutter, right?
The
But what if I prove to you that the government is lying to you about how the
Big surprise.
the,
Government's lying. Oh, wow, shocker.
the government is lying about how it's not controlled by lizard people.
Oh, okay. Okay, get out Kane in here. Show me.
You have to understand. You have to understand.
1776 will commence again.
Illuminati confirmed.
Yeah, well, the question effectively is, why should we differentiate God claims from something like that?
Well, I mean, I do hold true, and I know Jay doesn't really care for this, but I kind of do see the merit behind extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. I see the merit behind that expression. I hate tropes. I sometimes see people throw tropes around like in these models around like.
Fair enough. The question then is, what's extraordinary?
Nibiru.
How many
Is it like relative to each person? Is what extraordinary to you different from what's extraordinary to another person? Is there some universal standard of extraordinariness? I mean, because for example, it could be like maybe if you've had, you have priors in probability. So maybe if you have established certain priors that no one else does, then
sure. How about that? And I will speak slower. People have asked me to slow it down. Yeah, I mean, if we have precedent for something, right? Don't you think we're a little bit more inclined to believe certain claims if we've seen something similar to it before? I mean, 2,000 years ago, if you would have said to somebody in whatever language you were speaking, Aramaic or Greek, whatever, and you said, hey, I have this magical box that allows me to communicate to another magical box instantly across thousands of miles, they would probably go, well, I don't believe you unless you see it, unless they were really into mysticism, right? But I mean, they're not gonna know what a computer is, right? But since we've seen stuff like that, we are more likely to believe those types of claims, right?
I believe right. I believe David Hume kind of outlined some kind of litmus test. It was, look, if the only way you could believe a miracle took place is if to not believe it would be even more extraordinary. So
Sure.
and the idea is, look, you have a hypothesis. Let's pretend the hypothesis doesn't exist. At some point, we're just going to believe that, okay, you know what? At this point, not believing the hypothesis would be more outrageous.
Can I give you an example of that?
Imagine.
Or you were
Yeah,
going to
sure,
give an
go
example?
ahead.
Let me give you my example, then you give you your example. My example, and I've heard this before from really militant atheists, that they said, hey, look, if God appeared before me in the radiant, took me up to heaven, showed me everything, how he did everything, they would still be like, you know what? I'm not sure I believe in God. And at that point, I think it's like, I think you're justified to have that belief. I don't know why would be so unwilling to have that. I think it'd be more egregious to say I don't believe in God when you have absolute confirmation of, at least would consider to be me. Now, yes, an alien could be beaming that shit into your head, but what's more likely? We have, I mean, you can always play this game of what ifs. But I believe that if God existed, he'd probably know of a way to convince you without having you have those questions. But still, given enough evidence, why wouldn't somebody actually believe rather than have this continual line of uncertainty?
Well, there's an interesting question that was posed by a philosopher I really like, Edward Feser. And Feser is a Catholic philosopher in the Thomist camp, so of course he's going to appeal to me. So Feser actually has this interesting thought experiment. Imagine if you demand the same thing from the ancient Aztec god Quetzalcoatl.
You might want to tell people who Quetzalcoatl is, because they're not going to know who Quetzalcoatl
Yeah.
is.
So Quetzalcoatl, this Aztec god. Imagine if you looked into an atom and you saw his name written across it. And imagine if Quetzalcoatl was written in the night sky one night. Would anyone believe in Quetzalcoatl? I actually don't think I would.
Do you know what that word stands for? Quetzalcoatl stands for?
What?
Feathered serpent.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the story of Quetzalcoatl. It's been a while since so I'll shut up. Sure.
In any case,
and he's prophesied to come back.
The reason I don't believe that Quetzalcoatl would would be justified is because I think it would be far more likely that some kind of very science fiction-y scenario would have taken place. Maybe aliens, maybe somebody on, or maybe a secret lab of scientists on Earth managed to augment reality, something along these lines. Now, Phaser actually says that, look, when it comes to one's metaphysics and what you accept and what we argue God on, when it comes to on what basis we argue for God, the arguments usually given by classical apologists and theists have always been these a priori-ish arguments, like God is prime mover, or any argument that just says, look, if you don't accept the syllogism for God's existence, then you are falling into some kind of irrational error, and that's why you should believe in God. And if somebody, and if you don't believe in those things, well, of course you're not going to be dispensed to believe that that on evidentialism, more evidential or probabilistic claims that God could re-augment the stars, or that or that the atom could be restructured. I think, and the real problem is we don't have any priors on the supernatural.
Right.
We can't measure. We can't. It's really hard to measure regularities because these are one-off events, and you can make up any hypothesis, and it's really
Well,
and it's going to be very hard to try them. And what's even worse is, what if they underdetermine one another? What if none actually gets? What if they're all so undeterminable that the probability is very minimal between all of them?
The God,
I think it would
well,
be.
that's why the God claim is a little bit more out there, right? Because if we saw aliens, if aliens came down and we had like a ship come down and have a close encounter of the fourth kind or whatever, we would at least go, okay, we know the possibility of aliens exist. It's not completely impossible, but as you said, I don't know of any confirmed instances of any supernatural thing. Now, granted, there's belief stuff. Don't get me wrong, resurrection of Jesus and the atonement, the walking on water, all that stuff. But I don't consider those to be confirmed. You know what I'm saying? That's why
Could be a
people have
trickster
faith.
God. In fact,
It
maybe
could be, but
maybe
One thing, I just wanted to jump in. One thing about supernatural events or miracles, if they happened frequently, they wouldn't be miracles. So it's kind of like if they're in a catch-22. If they have to happen infrequently to be classified as miracles, but then if they do
or
happen
you could
frequently,
classify it as an
they lose that
attribute.
miracle status.
You could. Some people
Well, that's not
classify
actually. That's actually.
well, you can say you can
Yes,
classify a
sir.
miracle of any interaction of God. If God
How you
interacts
want
with
to
us, that can be considered a miracle every time, no matter how many times He does it, right?
Yeah, see, I think one of the problems is that a lot of people conflate miracle with um, very unlikely. So, for example, winning the lottery. You winning the lottery is very unlikely, but does that therefore make it a miracle? Because
Colloquially,
I mean, it does happen. People win the lottery, every single day. So obviously, there's it's not as rare as you think, because at least somebody's going to do it. Other people would define miracle more along the lines of a suspension of like natural laws, for example. Like that would be an indication of miracle. So like, let's say that on a regular basis there was some type of suspension of natural laws, like the stars being rearranged somewhere out there in the sky. That could be very common, but still also be considered a miracle, because it is beyond the purview of what we understand about the natural world.
I would disagree with that because then miracles would just be something that's just misunderstood. I don't understand why that's happening. That's a miracle. I think it's a combination of the two. I think you're right. Something that's not understood, but also something that may have this uniqueness to it that is not frequent. Because again, then it would be like back in ancient times, lightning was considered a miracle that happened all the time. But I think the infrequency
but to
portion of it does play into the fact if it's a miracle or
But to
not.
a theist,
The
life is a miracle, right? I mean, some of them might use that as an example. Life is a continual process, right? It's not a one-off. Life is a continual thing that's all around us. So it's ubiquitous that life is around us.
I would
That's true.
distinguish. I think so. In the chat, Frank actually defined how I would define a miracle and distinguish it. Physical laws and the laws of nature, they're God's general actions, whereas miracles are God's special and circumstantial actions. God is not so much as violating it. God's not so much as violating a law, but rather just taking special exemption to regularity. And who doesn't do that?
And I don't have an issue with that. People, okay, we get into the whole uniformity of nature stuff like that. I don't really have an issue if somebody says, okay, yes, these are the laws of nature. God came up with them, and then, like you said, there's a special exemptions that He has made to allow to violate them, or the fact that maybe there's certain things about these laws that we're just not aware of. These laws are not set in stone. They're not prescriptive, right? They're descriptive. So they're just how we observe things to be, but that doesn't mean they have to be that way, correct?
Well, I mean,
the law of gravity doesn't determine the gravity. It's just how we observe it.
It's not how it has to be logically.
That's a good point.
It has to be physically. Like the laws of physics define physical modality.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't define modality exactly. Yeah.
But in logical modality, or if there is such a thing, metaphysical modality.
Yeah. So I mean, if somebody wants to subscribe to that, I don't have a huge problem with that. It's not inconsistent in my reasoning or what I would think to be logical, or not logical. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my question to that is if
nobody
if
asked you though. Nobody asked you, General. No,
yeah.
all hail General.
Yeah.
General.
No.
Michael Heiser.
Let him speak. Let him speak. But he has to have a point.
I've only just come on. No, I'm just going to throw this out there.
Yeah, what's up, man?
So if we do, say, a differential equation to describe the planetary motion of or something, are you suggesting that the differential equation is not intrinsic to the physical nature of that motion?
Well, you have to remember the differential equations are built upon axioms that are axiomatic, right? I mean, these axioms are not something that are set in stone, right? We could just have wrong axioms to begin with.
The math. So from differential equations, you then get into relativity, which then can be more precise calculations for things like mercury and
sure. But if there's violations,
are you suggesting that
there just might be things?
I'm just saying
there might be.
Are you suggesting that the differential equation is nothing but a probability?
No, I'm saying that
the differential. Sorry, are you, General, saying that mathematics are both prescriptive and part of the physical law?
And by the way, you don't need differentials to do simple orbital calculations. You use Kepler's laws, but I know what you're meaning. I mean,
But the ironic thing is Kepler's laws can also be derived.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, sure.
But that's the point. It's all interwoven.
But as Max says, are you saying that they're prescriptive?
Oh, actually, I would say that I actually don't believe mathematics are part of the underlying foundation of the universe. I think mathematics are.
Wait! Eject! Get out!
You're done.
You're done.
All
right, Darn's deity.
But
that was cold.
So here's why. Mathematics are just very accurate approximations of the regularities.
I actually agree with you. I think so. I agree.
They're right. Like Newton's laws. We all thought that. Like, I could see how somebody way back would have thought, oh, these things are just interwoven within reality. Then come to quantum mechanics and, oh, wait, apparently they break down at some point.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Ozzy had a podcast on this last night. I don't know if he's still listening. I did, by the way. I did watch it or listen to it, Ozzy. You know what? Everything you said, I totally agree with. And that's not just because it's Ozzy. I literally said everything I agree with. Did you watch it, General? Did you listen to his podcast?
I disagree with this notion because.
Okay. Well, hang on. Because I wanted to make a point.
It's Newtonian mechanics.
I want to make a point real quick because I was going somewhere with that.
Okay.
That he had mentioned, and I agree. This is true. In Newtonian physics, right, the law of gravity is true, but in relativity, if you really think about it, the law of gravity isn't true. Because the law of gravity only holds true under Newtonian physics because in relativity, right, it's not a force. And that I mean, it's semantics, but if you really wanted to assign a truth value to something about the validity of it being a valid equation, right? Well, yeah, but in relativity, since it's not a force, it's an inertial force, is it really a true equation? No, it just represents something. But go ahead, General.
Right.
Well, then what's truth?
What's truth?
I guess
truth? I'll be here for 5 days.
to give an analogy of notation, so like you have Leibniz's notation and Newtonian notation, a totally different set of notation, like say Babylonian quadratic equations. The point is that the quadratic equation is true no matter where you are in the universe.
Right, but that's because it's analytically defined, though. I mean, math is math because
But,
it's
but
analytically
you see,
descriptive, right? I mean,
so
2 plus 2 equals 4, and
when
here
you
is
when you take
an andromeda because math is defined to be that way. That's why it's the same all over the place.
in relativity, like if you have two, well, in classical Newtonian mechanics, the typical high school student would be taught that, say, if you have a car going at 50 kilometers an hour the east, and then you have another car going the same speed from the west, then the added velocity would be 100. Now, and then you take into account momentum and so on. But when we take that same example and apply it to, say, if the car was going 50% the speed of light, speed of light, well, in relativity, it doesn't equal 100%.
Correct. Yeah, the vectors don't add up the same when you're traveling near relativistic speeds, of course.
Exactly. But that's the point in regards to it's the same Newtonian math. It's just that the denominator has the Lorentz factor involved in order to correct.
I call it Lorentz. You call it Lorentz. It's
velocity.
What's the actual way to pronounce his name?
No, I say Lorentz. I say Lorentz.
Okay, I say Lorentz. Okay.
So, but notice you're not ruling out Newtonian mechanics. It's just the same equation. You're just adding in the denominator.
Right. No. I understand I understand the math works. That wasn't my point.
Could I?
I just gave the wrong link.
Could I respond?
Yeah, but I was one second. It's not the math.
The broader theory.
It's not
basically the math.
It's not a force, though. Did I give the right link for his
podcast? What I'm trying to say is.
Go ahead.
No, what I'm trying to say is the math is incomplete. So the more we describe, say, like the theory of everything, all those integrals involved with if you include the Higgs boson and so on.
Yeah.
Adding more into the equation, but the point is, it's that it's an equation that is like building up the puzzle together. So once the equation's complete, are you suggesting that equation? Are you still suggesting that equation nothing but a probabilistic formalization of what reality is?
No, I don't think that's what he's saying. I think that he's saying that it's probabilistic based upon the fact that there might be certain variables we don't know about that allows for certain things like miracles. That's more what you're saying, Max?
Well, what I was saying is it's more of an approximation of how the universe is rather than it being probabilistic in nature. I think it might be probabilistic in the sense of I think miracles might be probabilistic in the sense of temporality, like what's and by event, but I don't think that mathematics is inherently built into the universe itself. I think that there are no equations that properly capture how laws work on every level of the universe. There always seems to be some exception or some level of breakdown.
So you're not a math Platonist?
I am not. No, I think that.
But then, Max, here's my question to Max as a fellow Christian. What about John 1:1? Because this is what I tell Steve last time, probably like last year. That
in the beginning, the word was God.
Exactly, the logos. So logos in this case would intrinsically involve math as the fundamental property of the universe.
I would say it makes natural language a fundamental property of the universe.
Well, let me ask you.
I think that no. I think. Well, first of all,
mentally, so metaphysically, and so on.
Let me ask a general question on this then. Okay, you're saying that if math is the underlying thing of the universe, and you're saying that there is some kind of concretism of some sorts of math, that math has some kind of real existence in the universe rather than just being something that we just... Yeah. Okay.
In this case, anything logic-based.
How's that not reification?
Well, what?
How's that what?
Reification, when you're making something in some concrete form. I don't see math as something to be considered anything besides conceptual.
Yeah, but it's functional for some reason. Like it
Absolutely
works.
functional. Yeah. Well, not always. It doesn't have a It doesn't have a correspondence with reality
No,
always.
it works.
I'm not.
The fact that it
I'm not
works.
saying, like, say the number one is like has like a physical like existence. What I am saying is axiomatic nature of that is embodied. Well, and I'm using embodied that loosely in the person or being of this God person called the Logos at the beginning,
God is
well,
comprehensive.
even before the creation.
Okay, but
God is
Right.
Go ahead, Frank.
intelligible. Is it?
What, Frank?
Well, the simplest way of putting that is God is intelligible, and the way humans make sense of things, we intelligiate, I guess, is by language, logos.
So, all right.
Like, I would like say that natural language is prior to formal language, and so mathematics, whilst in a sense, would be central.
Right. So is that okay? So here's my next question.
Representation.
Right.
Well,
So here's my next question.
One.
Is there an ultimate God-like equation that's like?
well, you think there probably
There
is,
is.
don't you?
I do not.
No, not you, but I think
Uh,
General might. But General,
No, yeah, but that's my point. I think the theory of everything does exist.
in the form of a mathematical.
Okay.
Wait.
Yeah.
I want to really suss this out real quick. First of all, Joe, I'd like to know what allows for a miracle in your view to have some kind of some say breaking of symmetry of some kind, right? If God wanted to
Right.
break symmetry and do something or break a law,
But I'm saying
how does he allow us to
saying
do
he
that?
won't.
And then what would a mathematical expression look like that's a theory of everything? In what notation? I mean, what would it even be conceivable of?
Yeah, but you see that again. So notation can, in this case, be a human construct. So
It is.
putting
It's not
notations
can, it
aside,
is.
it's still. But in regards to miracles, if God does just an ad hoc miracle, then He is breaking symmetry and He is breaking basically mathematical rules.
What allows
He
for that? Though?
won't
Is he
do
allowed
that.
to do that?
Well,
that's
he himself limits himself to not do that.
I don't even understand.
But he can do it.
Well, so I think what General's trying to say is that if God existed, the total if God existed and did nothing, the total equation of the universe would be zero, perfect symmetry. But because it's 42, we know that he's weighing more on the side of miracles.
Hey, General, we just solved your theory
Yeah,
of everything.
so
theory of the universe, 42.
because the 42 weighs the symmetry on the side of the miracle. So
and Pseudo
yeah.
thinks the theory of the universe, theory of everything is only expressed through interpretive dance. So
No, you got to read what Frank wrote, though. He said that he agrees that the theory of everything would exist. You just can't express it in math. Then I told him you would need to express it with interpretive dance.
Yes. No, I'm just saying
Go
that
ahead,
like
General, dance
I
for us.
take a philosophical view. I do
All right.
believe that the universe is
I'll-
intelligible.
I'll-
I believe I can make sense of it. Like I believe that it's possible to make sense of everything.
I'll do a
See, I just
Harlem
don't think
Shake for you guys.
There you go,
sufficient for
General.
that. You would need
See,
every possible means of
I don't know if that's
communication.
possible, Frank. I'm gonna
really got
reserve judgment on that real quick because you're saying that you think it's possible to understand the universe, and yet I think that I think there are
Potentially.
lines being finite. I don't think we ever have the capacity to understand the universe. I think it's beyond. Oh, I think it
I
might be
agree with you.
potentially
So-
beyond our ability.
What I mean by okay, here's a better way to put it. I think that being itself must be intelligible, right?
Yes.
Now again, skeptical issues, skeptical stuff. You guys know that I'm skeptic, but like, if I resolved all the skeptical issues that prevent me from like actually being justified
You
in
don't even know
believing
if you
anything that I
exist,
believe.
Frank. That's how skeptical you are.
I know I have that problem, but I would say that being has to be intelligible, like being itself. Well, if being itself is intelligible, then that means that a sufficiently advanced intellect could create a theory of everything, could understand everything. And so I'm not. Maybe our intellect isn't sufficiently advanced, and perhaps we could never advance our intellect enough. But I'm just saying that in principle, it must be that the case. If that's effectively, it follows in my mind from like the principle of sufficient reason, right? Like if
Do you follow?
everything has
do
an
you-
explanation,
Do you follow PSR?
well, again, skepticism stops me from following anything. But if
you're in
I'm
a unique situation though.
If somebody ever comes out and says, you know what, I'm skeptical about my own existence, you ever just want to punch them in the back of the head? You know, I don't know why. I always have that urge where it's like, you know what, man? I'm so skeptical. I don't even know if I'm here right
Sokka,
now.
I'm
It's
just
like
saying,
I will fucking knock you out. You will know you're here.
Sokka,
Frank looks like kind of a big guy, so I
He'll
mean,
kick
this
your
might
ass.
think back of the head. I'll probably
saying that I
I'll
don't-
run away pretty quick.
I have ran
I'm not
into
saying that I don't know
two.
that I exist,
I have
because
ran,
that itself would be too strong a claim.
that'd be kind of
It
self-refuting
may
to
be
us,
that I
but
know that I exist.
I've
I
ran.
just can't tell.
I ran into two philosophical zombies that have expressed that they don't hold beliefs in like in a matter of a few weeks from each other, and I'm like, I just want I want to throat punch them. I'm like, how do you have a system of understanding of belief that you don't hold beliefs, because that's self-refuting, because you believe that you don't have beliefs. Did they not see a
Well,
contradiction
I'm
there?
having issues with like the problem of meaning skepticism and the liar's paradox right now. So like I think so it's obsessing me.
So,
But beyond
Steve,
that, if
Well,
I
but-
could
Well,
solve these issues,
I thought the liar's paradox was
I would
kind of
see-
resolved through second order logic, but I don't know.
it might be like there's counters and stuff.
Yeah.
Steve, just
me and about this earlier.
Aristotle solves it. In any case, in
What
any
I'm
case,
saying that
Okay,
regarding
hang on, you guys are all walking. General, Max, and Frank. You guys are kind of stepping on each other a little bit. Max, go ahead real quick. Then we'll get back to General and Frank. One sec. Max, what were you saying?
um, I just wanted to chime in. I think the conversation might have taken a convergence where we're not talking about Clifford and
I know
evidentialism.
we have. I want to get back to that. I do.
Right.
I've
And I was
noted
just
that. I've
wondering
noted
if
that.
everyone could
Yeah.
right back now and say some final remarks on this issue.
Yeah, no, I want to get back to that. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to do the same thing, because there's other examples I wanted to get into. We haven't even talked about whether Clifford, as an example, was the ship captain's, was he justified in his belief? But one of the other examples given, and this is for more of a moderate evidentialism, is if you're like a fighter pilot and you're giving orders to go do a bombing run, and you hear on the comms something about a refugee camp. No, nothing else, just a refugee camp. Well, it starts off, I think that, there's a possibility of a refugee camp being in your bombing run, and you have no evidence for it. You have no empirical evidence to support that belief. Do you abort, or do you continue on based upon strict evidentialism, which would mandate that you continue on, moderate evidentialism, where you can decide kind of one way or another, or non-evidentialism, where you have a duty almost to abort based upon the fact that you don't have enough knowledge, but your belief is maybe warranted because of the damage that could be done to civilians, right? So there's a risk reward type balance I can see going on here. So
That's a bad example.
But that's one of the examples given for this type of situation.
Well, I mean, this gets, because we're kind of getting into this territory of like epistemology and moral questions regarding epistemology. This came up as a discussion actually at my work there, where we were talking about this, and it was about the nature of compartmentalizing morals or ethics, I guess you could probably say. And the easy example for this is like the defense attorney, and I think MP has some experience with this as well. Is that you might have a moral framework that you adhere to on a day-to-day basis, but there comes a certain time where you have to compartmentalize and you have to adopt a different system of morals depending on the situation that you're in. So a defense attorney that's defending, like a child murder or something like that, might have to put their own version of ethics on the line because they've surrendered themselves to a larger ethics within the criminal justice system, where they have to give this person the representation that they need. And it's the same thing with, and the reason why I say it's a bombing run, because I think it's the same thing with military. People that are in the military rely very little on, especially in their combat, what their own moral framework might necessarily be, because they surrender themselves to kind of like a deontological system where they're duty bound to do certain things. And
right, but you do have you do have a personal ethics. I mean, that's a good point. And by the way, there's a couple people every so often that point out that I speak quickly. They don't mention anything about Sokka, who's like 10 times faster.
They're used to it. They're used to it.
They're used to it. Okay.
He's got that smooth, mellow Canadian accent that's easy to listen to.
But
it is really smooth.
It is smooth.
This could like link
But
Like,
but,
like
it
but
comes
even but hang on, even in the
from the white
military
house.
though, they don't take away your personal ability to make decisions in the battlefield, right? I mean, there
Well,
are
of course. Well,
so if
they
you
do
do
because
well, no, they do not. They do not. That's part
punished.
of the rules of
They can't.
engagement. What's that, Frank?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say
But
that
won't you be
Sokka
punished if you
is
go against orders and stuff? Like, there are very few situations in which you won't be like court-martialed for.
It
I think there's
depends.
some lag because like everybody's talking over each
I
other.
noticed it as well.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say two things. The first thing is what could be attributed to Sokka's smoothness of voice is a lifetime of eating Lay's ketchup flavored chips.
And
And
poutine.
yeah.
the second thing is I think we should take Sokka a little seriously when he speaks about the military, given his own background about the matter.
Well,
And
I was in the military too.
Yeah, Steve is in the military too.
We have
as a
veterans.
ki-
Maybe.
I was in combat zone.
as
I'm a
as
veteran of
as
motherfucking foreign wars, bitch.
That's right, USA baby.
as someone
Yes.
in a foreign military. If you would let me finish, I was going to say as someone in a foreign military,
Yeah.
because you guys might be speaking past
I know what branch
experiences.
she's in. It's not real military.
Whoa. Wow.
Uh-oh.
Sokka, how do you respond? So hopefully I didn't give up too much information.
I don't do EP measurements about my real life experience.
Everybody's saying there's a bunch of nerds in here. Oh, you know what's?
But you know, but I mean,
That
but
is true. That's a true statement.
to the point though. I mean, like that, and what I mean by that is that there's a certain. You're right. There is a certain right that we still have to maintain like our own ethical frameworks, and but those are built within like the laws that we follow. So we can't be ordered to do something that's unlawful.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Right. But that's not necessarily our own morals. Then it just because our morals more or less coincide with what the law might say, doesn't mean that because we have the choice to follow the law, that we're actually following our own morals there.
Yeah.
So
But
within so within the obligation that you might have, like you might have the obligation that you will have to shoot at somebody, you will have to kill them. Now that might go against every single moral that you have, but because you surrender yourself to this deontological system,
I get
you
that.
can't be.
But,
Yeah.
But Sokka, let me stop because I think you're going down the wrong route. I get that, but in the situation, let's say that you actually heard over the comms, new intel, there might be a refugee camp of kids down there. Okay, you're not ordered to abort.
Well, now you've added more because it depends on what
I'm changing it now. I'm fully aware of that.
Okay, well, because now it becomes an unlawful order. Like
No. There might be. There's a possibility. Now you got to weigh the risk and reward here. I mean, what is a possibility?
Oh, come on, Steve, you're in the military. You think that they're ever you think that they're ever going to be like just like, oh, hey, carry out this mission. By the way, there might be some innocent people down there.
Well,
Yeah, and
Just
would
swing
there
by
be
and
like
go look for
external?
they will. I mean, they'll take that into account.
Would
Depending
there
on
be like any?
the type of mission, right? Wait a second. If it's a mission that's not of critical importance, right? They probably will abort. But if it's a mission to say, oh, look, they got a tactical nuclear warhead down there. If we don't eliminate them, we're all dead. So I mean, there are different types of scales of missions. You know.
But by adding that layer, then you talk about the more collateral damage that you can accept. Maybe, like you're saying, if it's a tactical nuclear weapon that can kill 1 billion people, maybe some collateral damage is acceptable in that particular scenario.
Yeah, but the whole
Yeah,
thing,
but it's never your decision. That decision will rest on command.
no, that's not true. That's not true at all. I fully disagree with that.
That is your true. If you're told to
Yeah.
push the button because they've taken into consideration that
that's
the
different.
collateral
Now you've
damage
changed
is
it.
within
Now
acceptable
you've
means.
changed it. Now you've changed it.
Oh, I'm not allowed to change it now.
Well, yeah, no, but you can't just say, well.
All right, we're throwing the fat man under the train.
We always throw the fat man.
Here's Max. Max is pushing the fat man in front of the trolley again.
He likes to do that. He hates that fucking fat man. I'm telling you. I don't know what the fat man ever did to Max, but
I would not push Sokka in front of a train. Don't worry.
By the way, I'm just kind of curious. I happen to like these types of hangouts with philosophy. I want to do more of them. Pick like a subject in philosophy and talk about it. This happens to be one about epistemic burdens and justifications and norms and evidentialism. I want to do more like this. I don't know if the audience is interested in any of this. I mean, it's hard to gauge because we have a low audience because of the time, but let me know, because I mean, I really want. I'm trying to learn more about these topics, and so the only way I'm going to actually be able to learn and suss them out more is by having hangouts with people that are other nerds, like Max. So, because he's king of nerds. Look at his head.
Hey, all I can say is that's not true. Nerds are smart.
But
Yeah.
I think. Go ahead, Uri.
No, you can't say someone's a king of nerds unless they got binary tattooed on them.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
have binary tattooed on me.
If
I
you
only
can do
have
math in
Latin
binary,
tattooed
you're
on.
okay. If you program in binary, you're a god.
Wait.
Well, or if you can count to 100, 1024 on your hands.
0 0 1 0 1 1 0 1 1 1 0 0 1 0 1. Anyways, but I think really the question is more though is it justified to hold that? But the whole question on these things when it comes to the epistemic norm is, do we have sufficiency to hold that belief? If I say, okay, I just heard on the radio something about a refugee camp. If I believe there's a refugee camp down there, whether I act upon it or not, right? That's kind of regardless at this point. But if I just say I believe there's a refugee camp, because even though I have no evidence I just heard something about it. That's not evidence for it. Would be a claim at best. That somebody says, hey, there might be there is a camp down there. Even if somebody even said on the radio, hey, there's a refugee camp down there, you don't have any physical evidence. You're relying upon somebody else, right? Somebody else's testimony. But let's just say that you just believe there's a refugee camp down there. Are you warranted? Because under strict evidentialism, you're not warranted to have that belief at all, right? Under Clifford's principle, you're not warranted to have that belief, correct?
Right. May I bring something up with regards to what Clifford means, but when he says evidence and what counts as evidence?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. A problem I might have with Clifford criteria is if evidence is only limited to empirical evidence. Being someone who's in more the rationalist camp, I don't think that we can only have empirical evidence, because what tends to happen is this. Why do you have belief A? Well, because I have empirical evidence for belief B, and well, why that? Well, C, and why that? Well, D. And no one can have an infinite chain of empirical based evidence. And furthermore, what is the justification that all and all rational claims must be evidence based? Like, what empirical evidence is there for that? Like, you could give an art reductio ad absurdum, which is, well, if we don't have, when we base things off just reason alone, we tend to have we only tend to delve down into metaphysical, theological sky building, and that's never helpful. Well, okay, but that's
Well, I would never
all right.
claim.
But
I would
at
never
that
claim
point,
that it has to be evidential only. I mean, evidential only, empirical only. I don't think we could get knowledge from many different things rather than just empiricism.
right. Oh, I was also just going to add one more thing, and the problem with that is if you kind of run into a problem of induction there, because induction itself can't be based off of empirical evidence, because induction, um, because that would be circular reasoning, going back to Hume's argument against it. So that would be my own problem if it's empirically based. I think if one expands evidence to include things like deductive arguments, rational inferences, very abstract thinking that's more logic and mathematical based. I think we could talk, but I have a hard time believing in an empirical criterion.
Well, I would agree for like rational inference, right? Absolutely.
Right.
But yeah, like I mean, the way I understand it, an empiricist, a true empiricist, right? You like that true empiricist? Which, by the way, he's not. He's not.
I said he did, man. Which did.
They usually start off from an empiricist point of view, and they build upon that. A rationalist would start off from the rationalist point of view, build upon that. I'm kind of in the middle ground. I think most people are. I don't think most people would say, "Hey, look, it's either empiricism or rationalism." I think there'd be a false dichotomy. I think we actually use both, right? But you're saying that for like the induction, obviously you can't use induction to prove induction, right?
Right.
Okay. You're saying you also can't use empiricism for induction either?
Well, no. With the thing with induction is, an induction is based off of empirical observances.
Yeah, that's what
If
I'm
you say
wondering. Right.
if you say what justifies induction, and you say our empirical experiences,
Oh,
then
that makes it circular.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Huh, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
And everybody else is in the
right.
audience just totally fell asleep. Yeah. One viewer. Okay. Yeah. No, we got
Although,
that.
although we could possibly route induction into Bayes' theorem, which gives it more of a deductive.
Yeah,
That is
that's a good point.
that
And by the way, we have about 36 people watching actually.
that is actually one
Yeah.
solution to it. But here's kind of the problem with putting into something like Bayes' theorem. Bayes' theorem usually requires something like some kind of prior,
Yeah,
like
prior
for
experience.
example, prior
Yeah, the problem
experience.
with priors.
Yeah.
Yeah, priors. Not only that, but also things like randomization as a control mechanism. So
Yeah.
why, or some kind of control. So if one says, why is this control mechanism like randomization beneficial? Well, it's always worked in the past. So you kind
Circular.
of roll back into induction again, and that's kind of a problem for more Bayesian epistemologists.
Yeah, like
Wouldn't that just roll back to wouldn't that just roll back to the axioms of the mathematical system?
So the problem is that under Bayes, there is always some kind of control mechanism, though. So it's not just mathematics. There's always some kind of control you look to when you're working alongside the mathematics. Randomization is just the one process I'm familiar with.
So what I love about these discussions is that
Mhm.
that one branch leads into all these different other branches, and there's a consonance among all of them, and right, there's a harmony, there's a beautiful harmony I see, whether it be mathematics and physics, epistemology, science being part of philosophy. I'm seeing this great big picture that I didn't really even see
that's what
years ago.
philosophy does.
Yeah,
That's the beauty of philosophy.
yeah, I've told you guys. You guys know my history. 4 years ago, probably closer to 4 years ago. Yeah, I philosophy. What the fuck is that? You a bunch of people sitting around smoking cigars, drinking scotch, and so I'm so glad that I have learned a lot more about philosophy than I ever would have without the Great Debate. It has made me look at the universe in a lot different perspective than I ever have, seeing this harmony.
Mess
And
with your head
yeah.
too.
Oh, let's look just in a conversation like this. Look how many different things it can lead to, and even the more brilliant thing that I've recognized is that no one person could ever understand all of this. It's so immersive and so immense that's why we have specializations. That's why we have somebody who's like Alex Malpass, who's a specialist in logistics, right? Or excuse me, logisticians, logistics, and or somebody like Fiona, who's a specialist in biology. Um, there's just so much information to know just in one particular field. Can you imagine one person knowing all of those fields? And that's the funniest thing that I realize is that's what the clown car posse think that they know. They think they have an expertise in all these fields. Have you not noted that?
That's why you have to approach them philosophically.
Yeah.
It's the DK factor at work completely, that they think they have an in-depth understanding of all these different branches, and they don't even have a tertiary understanding. I thought I'd just throw that out there as an observation I made earlier.
No, it is. It's a very good point to make. Also they also fail to realize that all this stuff is connected. Like you're saying,
Mhm.
it's a big picture, and they really departmentalize it and say this works in a vacuum, which it really doesn't. So,
And for people who may
it's
not know,
interesting.
we've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it again real quick. It's interesting. If you go to Wikipedia and you pick any word you want, any subject, anything at random, just pick one, and you click on the very first link of each page, not the phonetic, but the actual word that's highlighted in blue, and you keep doing that over and over again. Guess what page you will always come back to every time?
What?
You guys don't know this?
Pornhub.
Pornhub.
Oh yeah, I saw you do this before.
Yeah,
I've actually tried it a couple of times too. It works. It's
it works.
crazy.
It comes back to
It
philosophy.
always comes back to
philosophy.
Philosophy all the time.
It's because it's the broadest umbrella under which everything else falls.
Exactly. And somebody actually wrote a program, a crawler, and actually validated this, that no matter what you put in there, it'll always come back. And most of the time, it's not very long. You'd be surprised. The most I think I ever had was like between 20 or 25 clicks.
Is there like a philosophy loop where you go to the first link on philosophy and it comes back to philosophy?
I don't. I don't know what the first thing on philosophy was.
That'd be awesome if you can do it.
Yeah.
Because that would be cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm really just I like making these mind things, these challenges to say, what would you do in these situations? What are your ethical responsibilities? Are we justified in beliefs? Because I want to be a critical thinker. I want to be somebody who is justified of holding the beliefs that I do. If they're wrong, I'll change them, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons I kind of like Sokka's coherentism approach, right? He's a lot more able to switch things around and get rid of things that don't fit the coherentist model that he has. As a foundationist I'm a little more locked into things. And so
I would also side in the foundationalist camp. And that's only because in my own philosophy, I'm very conservative, just like in my own day-to-day viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I'm not moving out of the 17th century. I'm stuck in here, baby.
But there's no right or wrong one, is there? I mean, whether you're a foundationist or coherentist or foundationist, except for reformed epistemology, I don't get that one.
The problem is that's going to like.
I
think coherentism models sort of how you should, the freedom that you should have in changing your beliefs, but it doesn't
exactly.
It doesn't quite model. Like the issue then is that it doesn't quite model the certainty you would hope to have in your beliefs. So there's a give and take.
But that's why we bring up the Munchausen trilemma when we talk about foundationalism, and that's why most foundationalists will factor in, or will state that certainty is just not a requirement when it comes to knowledge claims.
We have no choice as a
I
foundationist.
intuitively disagree. There has to be at least one proposition which is certain, right? Like otherwise, like I mean, like even like otherwise.
But hold on, even from there, if you want to,
that happens, right? If you're not certain, then the question is, are you certain about that? And if you're not certain about that, then what happens is you have two claims upon which you're not certain. The certainty of the first claim is dependent upon the certainty of the other claim, which means you're uncertain about everything.
But the problem with that, Frank, is that even within your viewpoint, like, and I find that weird for you to say that, because one of the things when Descartes brought out his whole, what is it? I can't remember what it's called, or Coggo, whatever the fuck it is. I think therefore I am. Yeah.
Some boy.
Come sung young boy. Was that was in Meditations, right? Or am I thinking about somebody else? Fuck, I can't remember. Anyway, regardless, that it was the global skeptics that tore that apart. That even the things that he was assuming, the I think therefore I am, was based on other prior beliefs that he can validate.
Actually, St. Augustine talks. So, well, Descartes is most famous. St. Augustine also rehashes the I think therefore I am. He probably inherited from Platonists before him, but in any case, St. Augustine, when he wrote against the academics, by academics, of course, he meant the academic skeptics, not just anyone who's in academia. He said, okay, when it comes to I think, therefore I am, no one can really doubt their own existence. And if someone was to say, I can doubt my own existence, well, then I think the point was kind of to reverse it back on the skeptic. If you could doubt your existence, aren't you just as wrong about your doubt of my own existence? One already has certainty that one exists. You don't have to prove it to yourself. It's just so intuitively obvious, especially from the way it's brought out, that if anyone else were to deny your existence, they'd have to first, by greater thesis, deny yours. And they have a much greater epistemic problem to worry about. For Augustine, it was more in lines of deflection. And this is why he also said, oh, what? You're going to say I can't believe in the truth because I have an infinite amount of things I need to prove? Well, by that logic, you can't determine that I'm speaking in falsehoods because you have an infinite amount of things you have to prove before you could say I have no basis of proof. Augustine always has this surety about himself, and that comes from the fact that he first believes before he can know, whereas the skeptic puts upon himself this immense load and responsibility upon himself before he could even get anywhere, and that's actually kind of the genius of of the polemic that I really like.
Well, and there's also degrees of the skeptics. The skeptics have what is it? A Pyrrhonism, where you basically
Yeah, there's Pyrrhonian skepticism, and there's
Pyrrhonian skepticism, where that's about the skeptic as you can get, right?
no, Pyrrhonian skepticism is basically as skeptical as you can get. But so there's just various forms of it, which you
Yeah.
could say that there's more skeptical Pyrrhonians than there are others.
Where do you fall?
I mean,
Where do you fall in the gradient, Frank?
I am as Pyrrhonian as you can get, but not by choice. Like, I don't like being a skeptic. Okay, I want to get out of it. I just don't know how yet.
Do you know you haven't gotten out of it?
I don't know if I haven't gotten out of it. That's the
Oh,
problem. I can't justify that claim. I do.
He's one of those people that Ozzy talk about that's in one of those weird mind states that you just can't.
Look, I'll screw the skepticism so I can talk with you guys, right? Like, F skepticism, let's talk.
So you're at least pragmatic.
But yes, there's a degree of pragmatism. The point is, I can't justify the pragmatism. So
sure. Well, you can justify. Do you want to have a communication?
Yes, I do,
Yeah.
but I don't know. But the question then is, do I know that I want to have a communication? And then that's a crap, really.
But
You don't
you
ever
can
sleep,
justify
do you,
the
Frank?
you can justify the
Frank High.
pragmatism there.
Frank High would be the greatest guru I've ever ran across. Can you imagine if he was stoned out of his mind, just talking about shit? He would probably give you the answers to the universe, and you know.
I'm not sure he's not stoned now.
Who?
Oh, fair enough.
Me?
Yeah.
I don't smoke anything.
Start.
I think I'd go insane.
Can you imagine
Can
Frank on an acid trip? Let's do it as an experiment for science.
I think my brain just naturally produces acid. Like, that's what's really happening all the time.
DMT.
So I'm actually always hallucinating.
DMT, man.
But
There's
I'm like a mutant from the X-Men, but like my power is that I'm high all the time.
there's this hilarious comic in existential comics where Pharaoh, the guy who Pyrrhonian skepticism is named after, he wins the lottery, and then after he wins, he says, "Wow, I can't believe I won," and then he starts doubting, and with a very uncertain look in his face, it's hysterical. I'll just link it.
I do think there's a limit we can take skepticism too far. I really do. People are asking what's
I
your
agree.
channel. Put your channel. By the way, shout out time. Max, what's your channel that people are asking your channel? They listen to you or they like what they hear for whatever strange reason, and they want to go listen to more of your shit.
Max hangs out.
do you still have your blog? Do you still do your blog?
Actually, yeah, I just posted something on it. There's a new Medium, but it's literally called Medium. And
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I actually just finished responding to one of Matt Slick's articles on Karm.
Oh, did you?
I still think that Max wrote a really good critique of Sam Harris's The Moral Landscape. That's what it was, right? There's a moral landscape. It was just basically his his moral philosophy there. It's even from an atheist perspective, I'm reading this and it's like, oh, this is so disappointing. But it's a really good read.
Yeah,
especially for people that are diehard Sam Harris
Do you
fans.
guys want me to explain what my position actually is? Because I do technically have a position. I'm not so much a skeptic as I'm an eclectic.
We know your position. It's called the position of being confused.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. But I'm an eclectic, right? I take a whole bunch of different views and I try to make them work. And when I can't, I admit that I'm a skeptic. But until that time, I'll say, okay, I have this solution, and then I'll present it to you. I'll test it on you, and if you refute it, then I'll say I'm a skeptic. So that's what I do. I'll go to my thinking tank and work out the stuff, and I'll think that I have a solution, but I need to test it because science or whatever. So I'll talk to smart people like Jimmy Steffens, and then he'll say, no, you're wrong here, and then I'm like, crap, and then I'll go back to the drawing board.
By the way, I think my best part about the criticisms of Sam Harris is that I compare him to William Lane Craig, which is funny.
Yeah.
It mostly.
It's funny. I was just watching a video on Darwin's Greatest Hits the other day. I've seen most of his videos, probably all of them actually, but I'll go back and I'll rewatch a few. And the one I was watching the other day was William. He was comparing William Lane Craig's to what he was saying with Darwin's deity, and I love when Darwin's Greatest Hits does that, right? Because I'm not a big fan of William Lane Craig, but when William Lane Craig says something completely contradicting Darwin's deity, it's just beautiful,
I've done that myself. I love how he always brings up, well, William Lane Craig, he's just
Yeah.
a philosopher. He's just saying this.
He has two natures. He has his philosopher nature, and then he has his Christian nature, or something weird like that.
Too bad he doesn't have Darwin deity's asshole nature. There's only one of that.
God.
Okay.
He's not speaking as a
I'm just
Christian.
kidding.
He's speaking as a philosopher, and I'm like, you don't think these things are intertwined somehow? They're somehow like can be extricated from each other? Because I don't think so.
No, a Christian already knows that he has the truth. A philosopher is one who's seeking the truth.
Oh, a Christian knows. So you're making a knowledge claim now. Okay.
And that's it, moderator.
Yeah. This is what they do. You watch this. This is what they do when they come into Hangouts. You're a troll.
Oh, by the way,
You're a troll. Oh.
Oh, by the way, Saka, I was just going to ask if you see the links in the group chat.
No, I'm on my phone, so you gotta put it in the external.
Sure thing. And the other video.
Is there an external for this?
No, there's no external.
Just send me a message later, Max.
Yeah, the other video was when Alex Malpass was having what was I guess could be construed as a construction with Darwin's. It was basically Alex was actually doing what he does best, talking about a subject he knows more about than any of us, and Darwin's just being the rude asshole, interrupting him all the time, and then still saying, "Well, don't interrupt me, Alex." I'm like, I should make a video showing how many times he interrupted Alex. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And yet, like the 1 or 2 times he got interrupted, it was like, "Don't interrupt me, Alex. You're not answering the question, Alex." And he's like, "I am answering the question." It's one of those things like, first of all, we know when people are being evasive a little bit, right? We've been doing this for a long time. So if I ask a question, I know when people are just being evasive. Alex Malpass is obviously not somebody to be evasive, right? I mean, he answers questions. To accuse him of not answering the question means that you're probably not answering a well-formed question. That's how I would look at it, right? Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
There's always the possibility that it's two-way. Yeah, like.
And by the way, we have plenty of room in here. This room holds 25. The link to get in is on the Great Debate Community Forums. I guess I could put it in the video description if anybody wants, but plenty of room to come in.
So
regarding the question
let's
thing,
at least get 50 viewers. What's that? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just regarding the question thing. It's my view that there are really 2 explanations for like whenever you get into a confuggle in a discourse. Either somebody is not articulating themselves very well, and so there's a misunderstanding, or somebody is wrong and they can't and they either won't admit it to themselves.
Yeah,
they won't admit it, but they can't tell. Right? There's like the only explanations really, or you have a troll in there.
That's what I narrow down too. When somebody doesn't want to answer, look at there was a point in that video, and I know we're getting a little off topic, but that's okay. We do. It all kind of congeals together at some point. But there was a point in the conversation where Alex had asked a question, and we all know that Darwin's doesn't like answering questions, and Darwin's had said something that was really odd. I don't remember the specificity of it, but it was something like "what the fuck" moment. And Alex was calling him out on it. And every time Alex started to ask him about it, D&D tried to go back to something else. He kept changing it. He kept interrupting him. And it was clear he was using his mod powers not to have to answer that question. That's typical of a D&D. But what really even bothered me the most was when Antonio Fletcher chimed in and basically took DD's side and basically said, well, we just need to move on. And Hawkeye's like, wait, why doesn't Darwin's answer this? Because Alex is trying to bring up a really good point because Darwin said something really freaking stupid, and they just kind of glazed it over.
Yeah, I mean the entire point of that, and I think do
you know the video I'm talking about? By the way.
Oh yeah, no, I've watched it a couple times.
Yeah.
Because it gets to a good point because DD's entire stick is stick. I can't pronounce that. Stick. DD's entire stick is that any non-believer that relies on any type of inductive argument is
which is
committing
stupid.
some type of it is stupid.
Yeah.
But the point within that discussion is Alex kind of sat back and waited until he got to a point where he kind of lunged and basically really quickly said, yeah, but this is where your worldview fails, because you can't do this either under the criteria, under the strict criteria that you put on the atheist to justify it. You can't do it either, unless you can can you account for this right now? Can you explain this? And Dee tried to shift it, and he says, hey, no, I really want an answer for this. And then Antonio Fletcher's like, no, we should just move on.
Right.
You're not answering the question, Alex, and that was it. Conversation was over at that point. Alex left, like 30 seconds after that. It's like, okay, I think we've got to the point there, because he did it. I mean, the if you watch it, that's always really bad about that. That is that nobody, none of like DD realized it, but none of his sycophants did.
Yeah, no,
And
DD knew he was.
it was like it was depressing.
Caught, right? DD knew that he was caught. By the way, I changed my automatic gain control right now. Just a second ago. Let me know if that makes it a little bit better on my mic. I was curious. But you're right. He knew that he had been caught. Did you not hear the fear in Darwin's voice that he wanted to really move on?
I'll be honest. I don't really think that Darwin actually believes his own hype. I honestly do think he knows when he's caught, and he always just asks.
Oh yeah, no, I believe that wholeheartedly. He knows when he's caught. He could tell. He knew that he'd been caught, and that's why he was trying to backpedal like you wouldn't believe. So
it's not the only time though. Yeah, I mean, I remember in one of my own discussions. Yeah, I remember in my own discussion with Darwin, he tried to say, "Oh, you believe in the B theory of time? Well, that's just a Christian. That's just not Christian of you." And I'm like, really? I'm pretty sure my theory of time is more coherent than your theory. How do you even know what my theory of time is? You're an atheist, are you? Yes. Well, there we are. Well, you don't even know if I'm Newtonian. Okay, you're a Newtonian. Well, no.
He's not. He's a Neo-Lawrencean.
Yeah.
I think. Actually, I'm pretty sure he's a Neo, because I'm a Minkowski, but he's Neo-Lawrencean.
Actually, what he said was fine. He actually said, "No, I don't know what I am."
Yeah, that's right. But he is more of a Neo-Lawrencean, though. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I would expect as much, considering he's usually in line with William Lane Craig.
But he's just a parrot. Yeah. He doesn't know what these freaking things are.
You can always go with Aristotle's claim and just believe that change is really just that time is just really reductive change. Like, that's all it is.
Time is just reductive change?
Time is just change. Oh, time has changed. Like, all that's going on is...
You're just reducing it down to a change. But change of what? See, I could understand that, but to me it'd be a change of entropy. That's
the change of one act. Sorry, it's when one potency is brought out of act. So this is...
The question is, like, how do you explain that without reference to time?
No, but I would...
when does reduction occur?
Yeah, but the doctor says Didi doesn't have an actual position regarding theories of time. He doesn't espouse one, doctor, but I don't think he knows what they are. But when he talks about this thing, I would definitely put him in the Neo-Lawrencean type path. So, yeah.
Also, time isn't something that reduces. When someone says when someone says time reduces to a change of act and potency, what they're saying is that it's epistemically, you could epistemically reduce it to an explanation of time and potency. It's not an ontological.
Epistemic reduction. I'm more interested in the ontology. Well, like, okay, what is the nature of time itself, though? It's
can I just I'll shoehorn here to try to throw this back on topic. Because I'm really curious actually to see where this goes here, because I think that the next part of the conversation when we're talking about like Clifford's principle here is like the most important kind of distinction here within this entire argument, and that's if Clifford's principle. I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but it's he says that it's always wrong for anyone to believe anything on insufficient evidence.
Right.
So like, that's the basic Clifford's principle there. Right. Now, the question that always kind of arises from this is, what do we consider sufficient evidence? Like that's my question now on that.
Oh, what I would consider sufficient evidence is one of three things. So the first thing is you could provide evidence in the sense of a rational deductive demonstration from principles we all accept and are confident in. So that's more of a deduction. A second possibility is you could provide it in a sense of induction. What kind of regularities do we often depend upon and rely upon? So it's not just witnessing, for example, the sun coming up and coming down. It's also things like what percentage of authorities in a given field believe X. So if 98% of biologists believe evolution to be factual, or some form of evolution to be factual, then that gives me a certitude of belief that that's very dependable, even if I don't understand the intricacies of the process. And finally, another one is probability or abductive, and that's usually evidence which is given in terms of likeliness. What is the best case that can be made given our background knowledge?
So when we go into this, though, is that and this is so the question is, if those are what we consider the sufficient evidence, do we need sufficient evidence to justify the things that we're basing these things on? So like
Well, the
when we start
non-evidentialists
off,
would say no, right?
So-
The non wouldn't the non-evidentialists say even if we don't have enough information, we are justified in our beliefs? You don't need the evidence for it.
I,
No.
No, I think William James had something on this where if the question's still open, there's no evidence either way, and if the belief is useful, then you have warrant to believe it.
Sure. But the question,
Yeah.
I agree with that. But the example given would be something like when I was reading, it was an example given of Babe Ruth, and it was basically Babe Ruth goes to bat. He's drunk off his ass. He knows he's in no shape to hit that homer like he's expected to do. But bases are loaded, bottom of the ninth. He has to hit a home run to win. For the positive thinking that the sports player has to get in that zone, is he justified to believe that he can actually make that home run, even though he knows physically that he's in no shape to actually do it? But is the belief warranted in order to try to win the game?
Well, if he knows he's not in the shape to do it, then he also believes that he's not in the shape to do it, right?
Well, okay, that's a good point.
But he might not be aware of his own belief. He could be self-deceived.
Yeah, okay, there you go. I mean, well, that's what
yeah,
it is.
you run into those.
Yes.
Yeah, you run
yes.
into those problems all the time.
Yeah, even if he knows it, he could be he could have a belief contrary to his knowledge. That's
Yeah, so
exception.
That he doesn't believe.
he's suppressing the truth and unrighteousness.
Well, look, doctrines of self-deception are very interesting. It's a very interesting epistemological issue, self-deception. So I wouldn't just not it off because it's funny. It's
Great fun.
Well, no, it's funny because when we talk about self-deception, you have to redefine things like knowledge, beliefs. You have to separate these concepts in order for somebody to be self-deceptive.
So
there's two general views of self-deception. One is it's a second-order belief, so it's a belief about belief about a belief, or it's like a contradiction in your emotions and your beliefs. So you might have like a different propositional attitude towards it. So you might have the proposition, I'm drunk, right? You know you're drunk because you truly believe it is, but you have, for some reason, you have some other propositional attitude, like a feeling or a gut sense or a pridefulness or something, which just says, no, I'm not, right? So you're denying yourself. You have, whatever that. Another view of self-deception might just be that you know you're drunk. You have a justified true belief that you're drunk, but you do not believe that you're drunk, right? So you have the second order belief about it.
Well, you believe
both of these
the second order belief of your belief.
If
Yes,
I could perhaps just
Okay.
if I could perhaps just jump in and go to the question at hand, especially with the Beirut example, to me, a lot of these that speak to the morality of it usually come down to really to add emphasis on a consequence of risk and reward. There doesn't, in terms of pure consequence, there doesn't seem to me a problem with Beirut, self-deceiving himself for the sake or the end of getting that home run. It's usually a problem when people's lives are in danger, or like in the case of religion, whether or not these beliefs shelter radical anti-rational behavior such that it puts people's lives and rights at risk, or when you have to send crew members on a rickety ship. Like at that point, the risk is so far out there, it outweighs any benefits. And this is why I think it's important to remember, for the pragmatist at least, and by pragmatist I just mean, someone who emphasizes pragmatic considerations into how they think.
You mean me,
It's
right?
when no, actually, I actually would put myself with you in the same camp here. I think when it comes to when all else being equal and there is no substantial risk involved, I think that it can be moral to go with with the more pragmatic choice. So I would actually be in the same camp as you are.
And by the way,
But so here's my problem. I think I brought this up with Uriah in one of the threads, or talk about there. So whenever somebody talks about a pragmatic choice, so the word practical always kind of like comes up there as a synonym, and
Also like prudential.
yeah, I guess.
okay, that's by the
Yeah,
way.
but
Did you say
but when
prudential?
Prudential, like
Yeah,
prudence.
yeah.
Planning means
yeah, and
Go ahead, go
the
ahead.
problem that I have with that is that when you say this is when like no other factors are known, with all things equal or whatever, how do you even decide what the most practical solution is at that point in time? And that's the point where I get to kind of like a little bit like eerie with the pragmatic approach.
Well, the one he brought that up. That's one thing we didn't get into. When we're talking about the norms, right? The stochastic norms. The things that are given is there's different types. There's the epistemic, the moral, and the prudential. And the way I'm interpreting them is the prudential is what benefits to yourself, right? Is that how to read it in
whatever
that?
goal you have.
I'm sorry, what?
It's if you have a goal, it's whatever's good at reaching that goal.
Okay,
It's
whatever the goal.
efficient or
Okay, so it's a prudential thing to reach the goal that you're thinking of, right?
Right.
Okay. How would you define the moral for the stochastic norm?
Um, I have a whole different thing on morals, so.
like
Okay.
you could reduce the moral to the
So
potential. Like so
I mean,
I would public in terms of consequence. I think that's usually what's um, levied in the consequence in the rickety ship are the passengers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
For example, when anti-theists speak about the harms of religion and faith, what they usually reference um, are actions motivated by religious beliefs which are intrinsically evil but cannot be rationally opposed, such as flying a plane into two buildings, or um, Timothy McVeigh doing something. He also flew a plane into a building. Okay, that covers it.
Okay. So let
Uh,
me. Okay. So well, go ahead and finish. Go ahead and finish. I'm sorry.
right. So I think so. For me, I think the standard is this: when I say all else being equal, I just mean when the two options are both underdetermined. That means one isn't any more probable than the other. That's one.
Okay.
The second is the risk of the one that comes at the least amount of risk to people around us.
Okay.
That's two. And the third thing is that it violates no other moral duty or ethic.
Okay.
So it's not just so someone could say we shouldn't self-deceive regardless of the consequence, but that's because they're deontologists or something.
Okay. Let me ask you this then, because this one wouldn't really affect 2 and 3. It doesn't affect anybody else. But it does go to the uh, the wanting to reach a goal, right? It does have to do with probabilities. Let's say that you are sick and you're in the hospital, and it's more likely that you're going to die than not. Okay, probabilistic speaking. Should you have the belief that you're going to get through it and that you're going to be out, get well, right? Even though the evidence is against that, right? Do you have a moral or prudential obligation to yourself to hold on to that belief that you're going to survive it to try to reach your goal of living? Is that a justified belief? The evidence is against it.
I think somebody has. So I think one can make an argument for it, and my argument for it would be a will towards the good, and is actually something you owe to yourself in the sense that um, we always have a duty to will what's best for ourselves, and if it means willing that we are going to be the exception to the rule, we are going to be that which defeats the odds for ourselves, and we're just going to believe ourselves until the end. I think there's some kind of virtue in that character, and that could be especially seen in the
I agree with you.
consequences it lays out.
I agree with you, but
Right.
a strict evidentialist would not allow for that, right?
Right, and I
Okay.
don't, and that's one reason why I would disagree with the evidentialist in
Matter of
this
fact,
case.
in that particular case, would you put that more of a moderate evidentialist, or would you put that as a non-evidentialist? I would actually say that's probably closer to a non-evidentialism.
Well, I don't think the definition of a moderate evidentialist was put forward, but I'd say non-evidentialist myself. I think that's where I would categorize myself. Uri, I believe Uri is in that camp as well. Sokka, I think you fit into that camp too.
You're not
Yeah.
non-evidentialist. See, I'm trying to formulate my position between a non-evidentialist and a moderate evidentialist. I haven't really worked out which one I think is more. And see, this particular case, right? The example I just gave, I would say definitely would be a non-evidentialist position to take. In which case, does that make me a non-evidentialist? Non-evidentialist because I accept there are reasons to have a belief contrary or without sufficient evidence to actually warrant that dosastic belief or that dosastic position. Keep on saying dosastic belief. It's like that's redundant.
Well, I don't think we necessarily come to every belief by some evidential means.
True.
So normally, what would happen is that you get this. Your beliefs are like your habits, and eventually you're going to act on them. So the truth value of the belief becomes a posteriori.
I don't think you could justify the. Oh, sorry. I was just a line of thought. I'll shut up.
Okay.
Is it okay?
You can't use your reason.
Okay, I would say that
you can't use your reason to justify your reason. Go ahead.
You can't justify belief in the scenario you outlined, but you can justify hope. You can hope that you will live, but you cannot believe that you will live.
Well, I disagree. I see the nuance you're trying to make there, but the hope that you are wanting to live is based upon your belief that you want to live.
And well, no, you want to live. Of course, you want to live.
Okay, so
you believe that there's a possibility that you will live, right?
Yes.
Right. But you believe that that's unlikely.
Yes.
Unlikely.
But
admit to that yourself.
I agree, but this is self-deception, right? If you say I believe I'm going to live, contrary to the evidence against it, right? Even though
you do not say. That's the point. I would say you do not say you believe you're going to live. You don't say
you may not. No, we don't care what you may.
Live. When you say I will live, right? That statement is not coming from mere belief, but a kind of strong, persistent hope, right? I will live. I will try to live because there's a chance at living. I'm going to live. Right. I say you suspend belief on whether or not you will die.
But are you saying?
So maybe
are you saying that if somebody else, and I understand how it would work for you, but if you're saying look at Sokka's laying in the hospital and he's dying, and he said, look at it, I believe I'm going to live. You're saying he's unjustified to have that position?
Yes.
Okay, but what if Sokka says in his own mind that warrants, because he has a will to want to survive, right? That's giving him a warrant to have the justification, even though it's contrary to what the evidence is. It's again, self-deception is allowed for if he takes a non-evidential position. Is it not?
I don't know about Again, my view of evidence is like the compacted view that Max lined out. Like,
I would put you as a moderate evidentialist, and I think everybody else in here would be a non-evidentialist.
Yes, from their view, they would say that they're justified in deceiving themselves. But I'm inclined to doubt. I don't think self-deception can. I'm like.
You don't think self-deception is ever a justification for accepting a belief?
I don't have a strong argument for it, though. It's more of an intuition, so I don't want to. Say,
no. I got you. There's no easy answer to this stuff. That's just why people discuss it, right?
I don't think the hospital scenario is all that accurate.
Well, I didn't ask.
I think it'd be more.
Okay, sorry.
I've been quiet the whole time. Come on, you throw me a bone.
You want my bone?
I think it'd be. Yes.
Oh, okay.
But I think it'd be more accurate to say an irrational belief would be I don't need the hospital because I'm going to live.
Yes, that's a good point.
Whereas
be a
if
good
you're
point.
if you're going into a risky surgery, I think everybody understands that even at a maybe a subconscious level that they are running the odds.
Yeah, no, I think
But
that's a very good point, Slim. Yeah, I mean that in that particular case, you would be completely unjustified to hold that belief. That's what happens when it comes to like these faith healers and alternative medicine and pseudo medicine, right?
so that's my broken clock moment. Carry
Yeah,
on.
no, you're absolutely right. And by the way, at some point we've got to change it up a little bit. I've got to entertain everybody, and of course Tyler is assuming not Tyler, the med students in the live chat, and he likes the drama hangouts. And so I've got to please both. I got to have these types of hangouts that I think a lot of people do enjoy, and then there's the other ones are just like total fuck off hangouts where we just bash on people. So I got to have a mixture. So at some point we'll get back into
You know,
the
I
talking shit.
Steve,
Let me know.
I gotta take off, but before I take off, yeah, I want to let you guys know that I would be really interested in hearing how people define atheism so I'm going to I'm gonna leave and let you guys talk that out.
See
Okay?
the? Can you see the camera? Here, let me make this really big for you. Wait, there we go. There
It's
we
like, hey
go.
guys, I'm out, and here's a flashbang to tide you over till I get back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's my definition of an atheist. An atheist
No,
is
no, no.
No, Max.
No.
Wait,
Shut up.
Max may
Shut up, Max.
identify what his belief of atheism is. However, he must do it with interpretive dance.
Yeah, there you go.
Come on.
Yeah,
Come
exactly.
on.
You know what's so funny though? I don't know why
See you
people.
do it.
I have never had a hangout arguing over what a proper, what some definition of any word is. There's different definitions for things. And there's no
Going in the
official
wrong
definition
direction.
for anything.
Max, make sure you do the Harlem Shake.
Yeah.
atheist.
So the doctor
Atheist
finally.
definition: someone who denies God's existence and self-righteousness.
Yeah, somebody who's
Sorry.
somebody who's denying the divinity, do their own what is it, and their unrighteousness. Yeah.
Yeah,
Denying the
you
truth
deny
and their
God's
unrighteousness.
existence.
Hey,
Suppressing the truth and
and
unrighteousness.
Yeah, but doctor,
You
now
call-
you show up. Now that we're pretty much reaching the end of deciding, where we find ourselves in these epistemic theories, right? And I think I'm coming to the conclusion that I'm probably going to be a non-evidentialist. I think it makes more sense to me so far. Where do you fall?
I actually fall undecided. I actually do. I'm a bit partial to rationalism as it stands right now.
Okay, well, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I don't think they're mutually exclusive though. Is rationalism and non-evidentialism mutually exclusive?
Nope. I don't think
Not
any-
really, no.
I don't think so either.
No,
So
I don't think so.
yeah, I don't see why they would be. But again, I'm just learning this stuff. This is why I'm asking you guys. I'm trying to come up with my own, foundation of things of what what are my theories, and then build upon those. I could be completely wrong. I could pick one position and go, yeah, you know what, that doesn't really suit me. Like for example, I started off going, you know what, maybe I'm a little bit more of a theological cognitivist, and then after talking to like Ozzy and some other people, I've come to find out I'm maybe more of a modified or semi theological and cognitivist. I'm not a true theological and cognitivist, because if I was, I couldn't be agnostic. A theological cognitivist would say, you know what, you the whole thing doesn't make sense. What does this even mean? You can't. How do I know if I'm agnostic? I don't even know what agnostic means. It's just to them, nothing of these things make any sense. So,
That's,
Well, I mean, like you could be non-cognitivist with respect to certain certain non-definitions of God, and then you could be agnostic towards some and atheist towards others, which is what I
well, yeah.
take. I mean, like again,
if you're using like the small
we're getting into the
atheist,
definition argument, dude. We
they're
gotta
not.
shut up.
They're not definition arguments. They're usage. They're usage, not definitions.
Fair enough.
They're usage. Yeah. Nobody gives a shit
by
about
the way,
definitions.
for anyone who's interested in a nice link that explains a lot about epistemology, it's kind of like a textbook that you give university students, but it's not as expensive. It's like that. There's a link to it in the group chat for anyone who's interested in it. I'm not going to say it's a book that I'm not going to say it's a book that teaches about epistemology from a rationalist and foundationalist viewpoint, but I'm not going to say it isn't. I'll just leave it at that.
So we have a new person in here. In the live chat. I'm not familiar with the name. Johnson Robo. You've rejected God and now you're angry at the world and at God. You've kicked God out of your life, and now you're stumbling and lost. The interesting
How dare you, Steve? How
I'm
dare you?
stumbling and lost, but I don't know if it has anything to do with God's non-existence.
Yeah, the interesting part is okay. Again, I like to be a critical thinker, and when I'm analyzing stuff like this, I go, this seems to be a contradictory statement. If you accept God's existence, then in the way I'm formally looking at what atheism would be, then you can't be an atheist ever. You could be a mesotheist, you could be a anti-theist, really, which is not even it has to do with not liking God, but an anti-theist is against the belief of God, like religions. But if you know God exists and you reject Him, nobody could ever say I believe God does not exist, because then you're being you have a contradiction. Would you agree?
Yeah. How dare you think critically, Steve?
No, really.
Well, what I'm trying to figure out is when Max, General, and I rejected God.
Yeah, I mean, we got more. Yeah, we got a lot of theists in the room, to say the least. We got one,
Wait,
two, 3, 4, 4.5 theists.
Sorry if I overlooked
That-
anyone.
Pseudo's the
Slim,
half.
that will only happen on.
What's that?
If that day ever happens, it'll be on April's Fools. That's all.
Wait,
No, you're
um,
going to tell me that the Earth
wait,
is flat on April Fools, and you're going to prove
also, Steve. Also,
Rejecting God.
it. Go ahead.
also, Steve. What? Oh, I was gonna say, when did anybody say that God doesn't exist because we reject God? Like, I don't think even an
I have
atheist
no
would make
idea.
that claim.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on a second, Max.
Oh, there are
Yeah.
some who.
Well,
would
there might
Max.
be.
I want to say something, Steve.
Yeah.
How can you, if you claim that you don't believe in something, how can you reject it if you don't believe in it?
Because rejection would be like affirming the
opposite,
antithesis of
the
it.
opposite, yeah. But here's the thing. Like, I was reading this now. I lost my train of thought. He said, "Hang on a second." He said, "I've been asking atheists how all this came into being without a creator, and so I've got nothing." Well, actually, I could give you a mathematical paper, Robo, that explains how a universe is created from quantum fluctuations and instabilities, called Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, or is based upon Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Have you seen that paper? Would you like to read it? It's not an easy read because I can't even understand most of it. I can't say any of the math I can't understand because I would even General might have a hard time parsing this out. But General, did you read that paper?
Wait, do you not have?
I need you to send it to me.
You've never read that paper that shows how the universe came to be possible by a single quantum fluctuation that has been that came into existence because of instabilities?
Yeah, I have a question.
Nope. I mean, I know about it, but I haven't read that particular paper.
Steve, I have a question. This may influence my future science education. Is it okay to read science papers if you can't understand the math?
Yes. Why not?
Okay, so then I guess I'll start reading more papers from now on. I usually avoid it.
I mean, I just have to assume the math is correct. I can't validate any of it. I mean, I don't think many people could. But I mean, in those kind of papers, I just kind of skim through it. I get the highlights, get the gist, and I like the conclusion. Right? That's it. I mean, I don't have the ability to read those kinds of technical papers.
Because I'm always very wary. I'd rather be ignorant of something than to be wrong about it. Like, if that makes sense. I'd rather just not know than to think I know and be utterly and completely wrong.
Well, you need to be aware of something. Like, for example, like I'm aware that paper exists, right?
Yeah.
Is it moral to read a paper that you don't understand?
Why would it be?
Well, here's the
why
question:
would it be
is it moral to only read the title or abstract of the paper, then assume it means things that support your argument, when really what they're doing is countering what you're saying?
Well, that's Tommy Hall.
No, it's a trick question. The answer is only if you work for Answers in Genesis.
Or you're the Tommy. Or you're that's the Tommy Hall effect.
Yeah.
Johnson Robo's not real.
Yeah, I know that. It looks like a troll account, but that's cool. But I mean,
I'm going to go out on a whim here and say that Johnson Robo is also Walter.
Walter Williamson.
Really? I was going to say he was J.D. Kane.
No, it's Walter Williamson, I think. Who is actually a atheist. So.
I was about to say, give him a link. Bring him on in here.
No, they won't, because it's an atheist pretending to be a troll.
Kind of like how I pretend to be Catholic.
Yeah.
Become Catholic.
I thought it was Catholics pretended to be Christians.
Or how?
Yeah.
Well, Darwin thinks I'm actually I'm an atheist pretending to be a Catholic.
Yeah. See, I like it. I like.
Yeah, but you guys think I'm a Catholic pretending to be an atheist, so
I
don't know why you have a problem.
I like answering questions, and I like having people answer questions, so legit questions from people that actually want to know the answers. When people come in and they just want to ask a question that they don't honestly believe anyways, I just find it to be silly, ridiculous, and serving no purpose whatsoever. Right? It just.
Does anyone want to invite Darwin's deity in here just to see if he would want to come?
Be my guest.
He
Darwin's is
stopped
always
in before.
invited.
He knows where to find the link.
No, he's
Why are you
no
doing that?
bullshit. Darwin says never been in this room. What are you talking about? Not once.
2
Not
weeks
once.
ago, he was in the room only for a brief moment, and then we started wondering
I don't
why
think that
he
was him.
joined.
I don't think that was him. No, that was not him. Well, okay, for like 1 second he popped into the room. Wait,
Yeah.
was that?
Then he saw that one of the pal talkers was in here or something, or somebody who scares him off. No, it was
Okay,
Seth was in here,
I don't know if
and
that was
he
actually
buggered
him.
off real quick after that.
Okay, I don't.
I haven't seen Seth in a while.
Yeah,
I missed that guy.
I'm gonna count. I'm gonna count that for all practical purposes of him not being in here. I don't want to get bogged down in semantics. He's still never been in this room. I mean, just by popping in for a second, I'm not going to count that. I'm sorry. Yes, technically it's true, but I'm going to be practical on it
Well, he didn't say anything
because I can't validate it was him, so I have no reason to accept that it was him.
Wait, so you're not gonna get? Okay, shut up, Frankie.
Frank, I will smack you.
A non-evidentialist would say that it might be.
What are you talking about?
Stuart, a non-evidentialist would say it's warranted to accept the belief that Darwin was in here, contrary to the evidence that you have no evidence that it was him, right, Stuart? Is that what you're going to say?
That's right.
Fuck off. You know
what evidence? They're not.
I swear to God. Do you know what's so funny? Do you know what's so funny, Stuart? I'm not lying. 3 or 4 years ago, if I would like listen to this hangout as an outside observer, I would have been one of those people going, what the fuck are they even saying to each other? How the hell are they even understanding each other? They're talking in a language that I don't think they even know what the hell they're saying. And yet now that I'm kind of like learning about this stuff, I get it. I understand the concepts, and I'm learning the lingo and trying to use it properly. So that's kind of cool. You're able to actually
literally a year ago.
Well, this is something which I both hate and love about philosophy.
Well, probably a little more than that, but yeah.
People can't understand. Like, people think you're insane when you're talking philosophy and they don't understand it.
Yes.
That's a terrible thing because it makes you get a bad reputation. People think you're stupid. But it's a great thing because it prevents the uninitiated from having their minds explode.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing as twofold. One, when people talk about science, they get confused. People that have no idea of the scientific terms, they don't understand what's going on. But the second thing is that people that don't know the basic philosophy, when they listen to these kind of things, and not the people that don't want to learn or anything like that, but in general, they might think that people are just making shit up, right? But they're like, oh, they're just pretending they understand each other, which may happen sometime, right? I mean,
it does.
Yeah,
Philosophers have a tendency for nonsense.
I like how you slickism earlier, where you're talking about men in rooms with cigars and brandy.
Yeah.
More degrees than a thermometer.
And they all have British accents.
All have British.
Yes.
Got to be British.
The thing is,
I'm willing to say
the fact
Canadian
that philosophy
now, but
actually does tend to nonsense is an argument in favor of philosophy because it means we're willing to ask the right questions, which we're not willing to ask so many questions that we risk entering into nonsense without realizing.
Yeah, no, that's
you push the limits of your
That's
questioning.
how far we're pushing the limits.
Yeah.
We push it into like.
To where it
I mean, that's like
becomes
the
really
last
absurd.
100 years of philosophy, really. Like the linguistic turn. What is the limits of meaning, and
Well, but science can't address this kind of stuff, right? Science doesn't address things like ethics of belief or evidentialism, right? Science can't even touch those kind of things because it's not in the toolbox that science has, right?
Unless you're part of the atheist versus theist discussion group on Google+.
I am.
Because
I'm
then
in a lot of groups.
Yeah.
Well, what you want to avoid is just throwing out labels, is just over labeling things, and that's kind of where that armchair smoking cigar philosophy might get detrimental, where people are just over labeling things, and the labels are just implicit, and everyone's just talking over one another with their own definitions of their own labels, and we argue about definitions way too much already.
Which
So-
I disagree. I don't think we argue about definitions at all. I've never seen any argument for definitions. I know what people think that is, but that's never been an argument.
So, Steve, how do you define an
might be.
atheist?
Whoa, stop! Don't go there.
Hang on.
Stop.
I'm not going to answer that.
Resist
I'm not going to. But I will say this: if we ask somebody to define something, so if for clarity, that's how we're asking an individual how they're defining it. But how words are defined, that doesn't make any sense. You can't argue how words are defined because there's no one categorical definition for anything, right?
I will say this: you can pry my armchair from my cold dead hands.
And don't you?
I enjoy my armchair as well.
Don't you have a pipe?
I didn't mean to degrade anything, but
Well, he actually has a pipe though. Max has a pipe. Don't you have a corncob pipe?
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do. I see.
oh, all I have is a beard.
By the way, just FYI, I'm so glad he's wearing pants.
Oh, I'm not.
Was there a time when he wasn't wearing pants?
Let's not go there, Frank.
Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. Last Tuesday.
What happens in Vegas?
Yeah, what happens in the off-air
Stays in
hangout
Vegas.
stays off-air, okay? Yeah, there
Well,
you go.
hey, if it happens on Tuesday, then isn't last Thursdayism wrong?
Yeah, well, it's actually
That's
today is Thursday, so
right.
it's actually last Wednesdayism. Because today is Thursday, isn't it?
I miss less wrongism.
Last what?
What I was going to say,
Never mind.
less wrongism.
Oh, less wrongism.
It's this community that disregards any notion of striving for truth and believes we should
You're just less wrong.
strive to. Yeah, we should just strive to eliminate false beliefs.
Yeah, I'm not against that concept actually.
I mean,
So it's
in
apathetic truthism.
apathetic
Yeah,
truth,
essentially.
you don't care if it's
Oh,
true
yeah,
or
yeah,
not.
like,
You just less
You're
wrong.
defining knowledge as what you don't have. It's like you're defining knowledge negatively. I don't think it works.
Yeah, I
you
don't
have
know
to
if
have.
I think being apathetic to the truth is what you would call a flat earther.
All
No, I said
knowledge.
apophatic, not
Apophatic. Apophatic. It means the way of negation. It's
It's like
Okay, I misheard.
it's like making a statue out of an elephant by getting a hunk of marble and covering away everything that's not an elephant.
yeah. It's one of the ways like people talk about like one of the three ways of knowing how
Yes,
God exists
yes,
is the
yes.
apophatic approach, the
Ap-
way of analogy, the way of
apophatic approach,
negation.
I'm familiar with that actually.
Right. The problem with that is as soon as you say something is false, you have also stated something is true. So, for example, the flat Earth theory is false, but it's true that the flat Earth theory.
Yeah, you're
is,
stating the truth about it being false.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So you could always get some kind of truth out of
I-
that.
Hey guys, if you guys want to
Yep.
keep this going, we need to get some people in here. If not, I'm going to be ending it soon. Because I think we don't get too deep in these topics. But I think it's just enough to cover, the topic in itself to explain what evidentialism is. Because people do like to talk about belief claims. But the only thing I want to kind of finish it up with, if people don't join us, is that how do you apply this to faith like Max, faith or generals, and say, is somebody warranted to have justification to believe God exists without empirical evidence?
I think so. In terms of empirical evidence, I don't think there is any good, stable empirical evidence for God. I think that the best evidence you could get is of an a priori nature. And I think another or second gradient of knowledge, which is good, is believing in God or in some religious belief for a more pragmatic or prudential reason. I think those can also
I'm not
be
against
justified.
that. I think prudential reason is a good reason, or at least to an individual. I mean, maybe I don't know if it is to me or not, but if an individual has prudential reason to accept God exists because they have a goal in mind, they don't want to go to hell or whatever. It has to be taken to account. Now you can say, okay, that's maybe rational because maybe hell doesn't exist, and you believing in hell might be something that somebody else can construe as an unwarranted thing. But it's hard to say because again, we have our beliefs for a reason, right? I mean, we believe what we believe, and I believe that most beliefs are not chosen per se. I think that they just are a manifestation of a deterministic process. So I don't think we really always choose our beliefs. I guess you can say that makes sense.
I don't understand exactly how you would choose your beliefs at all.
If there is
Well,
no truth.
I think there's some instances where you could. I mean, there have been some allotting for certain circumstances where you can choose your belief. I just don't think it probably happens often, but it's not impossible under certain types of determination, right?
I would agree with you with the qualification. I believe that at any stage in a belief forming process, you can turn the direction. Like you can choose to try to start persuading yourself in one direction or another. But if you're like in a really early stage, then if you choose to persuade yourself in the other direction, it could just be like, I stopped believing it. Right? Like
So you're saying,
so it's
but that's formulating a belief though, and that's what a true.
I agree. I'm just saying that the will, in my view, works on the process of finding a reason, not on the belief itself. The belief just sort of naturally happens, but you can choose where to direct your seeking for truth. And so you can, being aware of your own beliefs, like what you actually do believe or what you're actually slightly starting to incline to believe, you can say, I don't want to believe this. You can just arbitrarily say, I don't want to go in that direction, let's change. And if you're early on enough in the belief forming process, you don't have a lot of confidence one way or the other. You change the other way, you'll start leaning the other way.
I do see what you're saying, and that's one of the things where I kind of said too. I think we can choose our beliefs in certain instances, especially when you're.
I'm just putting a qualification.
Yeah, when you're in that middle ground and you want to weigh one way or another. But, anyways, Max wants to look smart here, so let's have him say something very, erudite. So come on, Max, say something smart.
Something smart, and in all seriousness, though. In terms of how it's applied to faith, you can make a lot of good defenses for not necessarily a persuasive case why people should accept your beliefs as being like on par with something like a scientific theory, but I think you can make a convincing case on why you have rational warrant, and that's all I think needs to be
I'm not
made
against
here.
that idea. Yeah.
All right. I don't think that. I think atheism myself is incorrect. I think I can make arguments against people who are atheists, and I think I can make them fairly cogent. But I don't think that makes atheism, as a matter of fact, irrational to all people at all times. I don't think my arguments can carry that much weight or water. And I think that there are perfectly smart intellectual atheists out there who are warranted in their belief.
Yeah, that's a different thing altogether. By the way, I'm getting a little feedback, and I don't know who it's from. But I think it's a different thing altogether. But would you say that an atheist is not justified to hold that particular belief? Because I don't think you would go that far, would you? Because I would never say that a theist is unjustified to hold his belief. That's why I'm saying there might be times when you have a belief even without evidence. That's why I would think that most theists that accept there is little or no, I would say no, scientific evidence for God, that is non-evidentialist.
So I would argue that it depends on the atheist. And by that I mean there are good reasons. There are reasons that are better than others. I think.
Right, I understand that. But I'm saying in general. I'm not talking about a specific individual that has irrational reasons to be an atheist. Of course, that's not, rational.
You might think it's not generalizable. Like it has to be case by case.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, I think it is case by case. But I mean, well, okay, let me rephrase it. Actually, I'm trying to do the opposite. I mean, yes, you could apply it case by case, but as a whole,
no, he's saying that there is no forest, right? You're trying to find where there's the trees in the forest.
Yeah,
he's saying there isn't one. You have a whole bunch of different.
So you can't even say in general that atheism is justifiable. Well, then how would it be that theism would be justifiable for the same measure?
He probably would.
I probably wouldn't either. I think there are some theists who are committed to their belief, but in an irrational way.
Sure, I agree as well. Okay, I get what you're saying. I can go with that. That's okay.
Disappointing, isn't it? It's
Oh man, yeah. By the way, if anyone the doctor made a good point in the group chat. If anyone's interested in me backing up my claim about irrational atheists, see me debate Sizer about a year and a half ago.
Oh come on, really?
I don't even.
It's on Gus Belanger's channel.
Aaron says he can't, or Aaron Voluntarist said he can't join. I'm sending you a message or a link internally, Aaron Voluntarist, because I didn't see anything come up for requesting to join, so I just allowed you to join, so it should be able to come in. But go ahead. I'm sorry, what? So you had a debate with Stizer. I mean, okay, well, yeah, I had a debate with Ronnie. It's like, come on, these are not difficult targets. If you really want to have a debate on Stizer, have a debate on spot physics. Oh my God.
That's basically where Stizer went with it.
Oh, okay. Stizer one night, and he subsequently has kind of apologized. But one night he's drunk like he usually is, and he's like, well, I've studied quantum mechanics for 8 years, whatever his accent is, right? And I'm like, you studied quantum mechanics, one of the most hardest subjects known to man. And I'm like, okay, well, can you tell me what? Can you tell me what a complex conjugate is? He's like, just lost.
That's in grammar.
He just lost. He's lost. He has no idea what a complex conjugate is. I'm like, okay, can you show me what a Brockett notation is? Can you show me what a psi function is? A probabilistic wave density? And I'm like,
What?
So wait a minute. You studied quantum mechanics in 8 years. What the fuck did you learn? I don't know. If you don't know what a complex conjugate is, I don't know how you could ever do quantum mechanics or even math. So.
Also, here's a rough summary of Max's debate with Stizer. Max presents a contingency argument predicated on the ideas of divine simplicity. Stizer repeatedly calls Max a cunt and an idiot and keeps saying the word fuck and just randomly throws in the word quantum every now and then.
You cunt.
Did he say
quantum?
idiot?
His whole introduction was, you were worried that I wouldn't bring up quantum physics, but I'm gonna fucking go there, you fucking cunt.
I could have sworn he called me a sand nigger in there too. I'm not.
Yes, he did.
Oh God.
And then, of course, Gus
God.
was excellent as a moderator. And at the end of it, he says, tune in next time for the debate between Max and Sty when they determine who is best hung. And Sty immediately chirps up, not realizing that this is a joke, to actually argue that point.
I should see that debate again. It's hysterical.
I had a notification that C. Brown said he'd moderate a debate between me and Quantum Eraser, and I'm like,
yes.
No. I'm like, no.
Yes.
What would I debate Quantum Eraser on? The Earth's not flat. Deal with it.
That's your opening and closing statement.
Yeah. See the problem. Okay, here's the thing. You cannot debate somebody on a person who doesn't speak English if I don't understand what the hell they're saying. Quantum Eraser doesn't speak in a language that I understand. It's just complete nonsensical babble. He just throws these words together
earlier on,
and then expects
Stuart
you to have an
had
answer.
mentioned that. Stuart had mentioned this earlier on, where he was saying that you have these people who just randomly throw out terms without really specifying what they mean by it, or even if they understand what the terms mean that they're using, and that perfectly describes Quantum Eraser. And that's what went through my head when he said it. I sat through one of his hangouts, his science versus scientism hangout bullshit, and he's literally arguing that the Earth is flat, and then a breath later he's saying, but physical reality doesn't exist, everything is mental, and he's describing monistic idealism. And then he immediately goes into some random quote by a physicist.
Isn't monistic idealism is that we live in the mind of God?
No.
Not really, no.
Not necessarily.
But hang on,
there's one kind of thing that actually exists, and that thing is mental.
But that's God, isn't it?
Yeah, you could interpret that in a kind of theistic idealism, but
okay,
not necessarily.
Okay, I got you. Thomas, I tried to invite Thomas in the live chat. Holy Kool-Aid. It doesn't come up when I put your name in, which means you may not be your main account. But the link to get in is in the Great Debate Community Forum. If you want to come in, just go get it and come in. And by the way, Thomas, when are you going to do that video on evolution that you wanted us to look at the script? Well, not me specifically, because what the fuck do I know? But I mean, as a group, we're going to do a panel thing on it, and also I'm going to do a panel thing on another video. This guy named Scott Spicer, I think his last name is, and he did a video against our favorite subject, lactheism, and I come to find out that we actually agree across the board on the generalities. He just thinks that by changing the system, in academics to a negative position is more beneficial. That's a legit argument, and that's what we're going to have a roundtable. What's the pros and cons of doing that?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
That's called a.
yeah, rather than be bogged down in the nuances of it, because his video does not make. When I watched this video, right, I said, this you're promoting all the crap that I've explained to people is wrong, and now you're telling me. I talked to him for 2 hours on the phone. I'm like, now you're telling me, yes, you recognize this, but you never make the argument that you just think it should be changed. It's never made in your video. And he's like, I recognize that. He's like, I was a little, he was even admitting a little deceptive in it. And I'm like, well, that's not how you make a video, because now you have people on your channel thinking that I'm the idiot. And he's actually put in there that, Steve actually is correct on all this stuff, but I'm just advocating the American atheist position. And I think that's, you know what? I'm like, that's a fair topic. That's awesome. So eventually we're going to have a roundtable discussion on that. But I just thought I'd throw that out there. But
an explicative definition, right? If you go in the Stanford Encyclopedia article on definitions, that would be, he says, my definition is preferable. It's explication, right? So,
yeah, exactly. Well, no, it's more pragmatic too. I mean, for my approach is I think is the way, when Malpass did his little blog on what is atheism, what is atheism too, he makes brilliant points. Logically, the system is similar. I mean, if not identical, it's mirrored of each other. I think it breaks some symmetry, but you can get around that. I mean, in my approach, atheism, an atheist is somebody who affirms atheism, right? Which makes sense, ism. But in the other approach, it's not. An atheist is somebody who affirms not theism.
Yeah, the scope of the A. If you have to.
It breaks the symmetry of the ism ist, and I think it's kind of confusing.
Well, yes and no.
Yeah,
like. That is a grammatical point. Okay, I'm getting into this argument that I don't want to be part of. Why am I?
Yeah, because we do that. But Holy Kool-Aid said he's driving. I'm curious. First of all, don't text or type when you're driving, Thomas. But what he said he's going to. What is this religion? Where was he into? Oh, Imagine No Religion. Is that a podcast thing? Or a convention?
Imagine No Religion is a convention that happens in Canada.
Oh,
kind of like the Reason Rally in the United States. It happens in Kamloops, British Columbia.
Oh, hey, awesome.
It's also a song lyric.
Hey, Thomas, put a shout out to the Great Debate community. Hand out cards for us. We'll promote your videos too. By the way, if you haven't gone to Holy Kool-Aid's channel and watched his shit, do it. He has very, very high production videos, and he makes them very reasonable. I can't say they're probably agree, everything across the board, but he makes very good cases for things, and I think his videos are exceptional. So if you haven't subbed to him, go sub to him. But yeah, put a shout out to the Great Debate community, get people involved, because again, this is this is more than just making videos. You make brilliant videos, Thomas, but other people make videos too. This great community, the Great Debate community, my channel, is where people actually come to talk about these things and learn about these topics. And that, to me, is something you just don't have in a video, right? You can't put that in a video, the interactions with people, especially with laypersons and experts. Right now, nobody here is an expert. Well, I mean, Max maybe considered.
He's approaching.
I mean, he's got qualifications. Yeah, he's got a master's degree in this. He's not a dumb fuck. He is in other things, but he's Max.
I would be a dumb fuck in mathematics and the sciences. I wholeheartedly admit that.
I will refrain from the joke that sprang to my mind.
Well, we're all inept in stuff, right? I mean, I don't know why people think that it's wrong to say, hey, you know what, I'm inept in that subject, or I'm incompetent in that subject. I have no problem saying that. There's a lot of subjects I'm incompetent upon. Okay, you don't want me to do medical diagnosis of you. I'm incompetent to tell you what medically is wrong with you. But I think the clown car posse.
I think the proper term now is you are
come now. You're far more qualified than WebMD. Like all they say is everything is cancer.
Yeah, everything is cancer on WebMD.
It's either cancer or an allergic reaction. Yeah, it's one of those two.
Or muscle sprain. That's true though, huh? But when it's like, but to the opposite, the CCP, they can't admit they're incompetent in anything. They have no ability to be self-aware, and it is the DK factor, right? I mean, what is it? The intelligent or what's the damn quote about being cocksure? The Bertrand Russell's quote, wasn't it?
Oh, Bertrand Russell quote.
The
problem with the world.
Yeah, the problem with the world
is stupid or cocksure, and the intelligent are full of doubt.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. What's that, Frank?
The more negative stuff you say of a broad term like CCP, or yeah, that's it. The more the people who think that you're a member of that they're a member of that group will feel insulted by you, and the harder it is going to be to talk with such people.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Again, like Lamed student says, he likes the fact that we were able to trash on the CCP. Okay, okay. I actually had a person leave my channel just recently. Somebody that I'm not going to mention exactly who. You might be able to figure it out when they're not around. But I mean, but they felt like I applied the rules too equally, I guess, because I put the rule for this person the same with anybody else, and they thought should get special treatment. It's like, no, I don't care if you're a Patreon. I don't care if you're a big donor. I don't care what it is. I'm going to treat people equally, and they felt slighted by that. And the problem is that it was all drama. That's all they had. It's just drama, 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 drama. And it's
I know who this is.
And it's just like, I get 50 paragraphs on my Facebook of drama, 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 drama. And it's like, I don't want drama. I want to be able to talk about the drama with the CCP. But if, Doctor, you don't like Max, don't sit there and send me 50 messages on Facebook what a shitbag Max is, right? I don't want. That's not the drama that I'm interested in, right? I'm not interested.
Could not like that.
Send you stuff about how
no names. I told the person I'm not going to make.
You said you would trust everything I say, right? So I'm not out there. So I'm going to send you like 50 posts about
but it is where I can't say, like I said, I can't say the name because I told him not to. But it is something to discuss. Is that look, I'm not. If you're sitting in the live chat, I don't want the fucking drama between people. I only got a limited amount of space, right, on my OBS to actually people read the chat, and as it clouded up my personal shit, then it's people can't actually follow what's going on, right? And I if I ask you to stop and you don't, I will tame it out. I mean, Lamed student, Lamed student has been more than generous to my channel, but if I ask Lamed student 50,000 times to stop and he doesn't, I'm going to give him a timeout. I think Lamed student would not respect me if I didn't treat him is equal to, and again, I get preferences. Like if a Patreon wants to come in on a chat where they have a good guest, yes, they get preferential treatment, of course. Absolutely. I think that's the way to get back to Patreons and way to get back to People Support Channel. I think that makes sense, right? But, to say that they get special things where they can just cause problems, no. I mean, Doctor, you support my channel, but if you came in here and you were just, acting like a complete dick like Darwin's deity, I would be like, Doctor, I just, come back when you're better, and I would eject you just like I would anybody else. Would you not respect me if I didn't?
And there have been a few times where, I've been pissed off, or I came home from the bar and I was drunk and I joined the hangout and you've put me in line.
Yeah, but I mean, but politely, right? I mean, I don't stop being your friend.
No,
right?
entirely reasonably. I don't take. I personally don't take offense to it. Where it's like, okay, yes, I shouldn't have done what I did.
Yeah. So yeah, Leved's like, I need a spanking when I'm bad. You know what?
Even as adults, we all need
Dibs. Doctor will. Yeah, that's what I have the doctor for. So my hand doesn't touch the bottom of men.
I'm a sucker for a genuine French accent, not a French Canadian accent.
We might make a love connection here.
I actually prefer French Canadian accents to authentic French accents.
Do you prefer a French maid or a Canadian French maid?
Canadian French.
So a woman who hasn't shaved in like 9 months, shaved her legs or anything, laying on the bed with a mustache going, hello there.
So I'm curious, how far is this I'm just going to call it the Reason Rally, Canadian Reason Rally. How far is the drive does Thomas have? Where's it located at?
I don't know where Thomas is stationed at right now.
Well, he's still listening, so. But how is he typing? How is he typing? He better not be driving.
It's normally held in Kamloops, British Columbia. And the first year that it happened, I decided, like an idiot, that I would take the train.
Oh, you know what?
From Regina.
Aaron voluntarily send me a private message. I got 2 links I can use here. If it's not this one, I'll send you the other one. Sometimes if you're on a phone or something, or sometimes it just doesn't work. So let me send you both links and see if either of them work for you. So 1 second. Because he's trying to get in, and I feel bad he can't get in.
It's Slim Jim.
Really annoying me right now. There was a thought that I had earlier.
You had a thought? Are you
And-
sure?
and-
Did you
and
believe
I
you had a
kept
thought? Are you
happening
sure?
over and over again, and then I had to stop talking for like everyone else's time, and I can't remember it.
Were you
It's so
skeptical?
upsetting.
Were you skeptical you had a thought?
I don't really know what it was about. Wait, what'd you say?
Were you skeptical if you had a thought, or did you know you had a thought?
That's gonna be the thing with me, isn't it? It's gonna
be a thing.
Slim Jim, Frank, remember the recent article I wrote on in response to Slick? I updated the picture. I suggest you go to it now because it's a much better idea.
Okay, Aaron, you don't
Okay.
exist, by the way. I can't find you anywhere, Aaron, voluntarist. You're gonna have to send me a direct message on G+. Ooh, look at this. Seth has joined us. All hail.
I haven't seen. No, I'm generally excited. I haven't seen Seth in a while.
He always gets
Ditto.
he always gets me excited. Did you bring Meg with you this time?
No, I'm at work, and she's I think she just got off work. She's at home.
So you're free to talk about her. Okay, gotcha. Did Thomas leave the live chat, or is he still like hanging out there, driving? Holy Kool-Aid. Just curious.
What the heck?
Who knows? He's not commented within the last 5 minutes, so I can't see him on there.
He got bored.
Nah.
He's dead.
Well, if he's heading to Imagine a Religion.
You know. What's that?
Well, a lot of people head to Imagine a Religion from all over Canada. Like I know people who live in Newfoundland who are going all the way over to British Columbia to see it.
Imagine there's no heaven. Yeah, well, you know what? The Reason Rally, like I said, I understood the principles behind it. I was backing it, but this last one with this whole fiasco with the SJWs, I just think they fucked up.
Oh, I love talking to SJWs.
Yeah. Do you agree though that they kind of ruined the Reason Rally?
I beg your pardon?
I don't think they.
You don't think they ruined the Reason Rally?
I didn't see the last one.
I think the turnout rate was really low, and they blamed the social justice issues that was going around there.
I think that was a big reason for it.
And I can't say myself. I don't know.
It was raining.
Lemez
It was raining at the first one.
Lemez leveling his Pandarian archaeology.
I thought it was raining on the last one too.
Besides Doctor, who can tell me what Pandarian archaeology is? Anybody besides the Doctor?
Wait, isn't that like?
Nobody else can tell you what Pandarian archaeology is. Oh, great.
It's from Doctor Who.
A waste of time. That's what it is.
Yeah,
a complete fucking waste of time.
Yeah, you don't even get. Well, now you can get it. You can get a mount for like a weekly one that's done, but
it's not worth it.
It takes a lot of frags. Yeah, I don't even play. I haven't played for a while because I can't afford 120 gold a month. Actually, 120,000 gold a month. I theoretically could.
This WoW?
Yeah, I theoretically could, but you know, I get really into WoW and then I take a break for several months and then I go back into it, right?
Well, there's a general rule right now in World of Warcraft, which is anything involving the pandas in general is just a waste of time.
What?
People just hate the pandas.
I was not a big fan of Pandaria at all. I didn't like that X-Pack.
I like the monk. The monk class is fun.
Monk class was fine, but why would it be a panda? I don't know. I thought it was kind of just strange.
Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah, I got the Kung. Yes, I know, but I you know what? Be a little more original.
They were drawing upon Warcraft 3, and they were looking for a new class to add. They didn't want to put in another hero class because hero classes take so much work to put in, and they had Chen Stormstout in Warcraft 3, in the actual founding of Duratan.
Is this a hero class? Is there a lot of work because there's a lot of backstory on it?
They didn't.
Because the mechanics.
The actual problem with the hero class is because they start off at such an advanced level and then they level up so quickly.
True.
They have to write in so much additional code that it's just easier for them to just write something from scratch. And so they gave the Pandarans and they gave the monks speed leveling.
Yeah.
So it was effectively the same, but it was easier on the programmers.
So monks had speed leveling. They got. I didn't know the monks got.
Yeah, they had Zen Pilgrimage would take you to.
I never played a monk.
Well, if you play a monk, especially if you play a Pandaran monk, the Pandarans start off with a racial ability that gives them double rested experience.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And then on
Well, I
top
think-
of
you know, I
that,
think
the
I did.
monks
I did know
have
about it.
the monks have a daily quest that stacks across the 24-hour period. So when server resets,
So
the
you
day,
level pretty quickly, Epidemic Monk.
yeah, you basically end up you can stack up 400% experience.
So you could go from 0 to 100 in a day or two?
One day.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
If you're really dedicated, just one day of leveling.
Because I don't
dungeon
get
grinding.
And how about but not 110, right? Because 110 takes a while.
Yeah, once you reach like level 100, you're reaching present.
Right. So that
expansion,
that
and at that point, it slows down the experience gain.
I could probably right now, if I really had to, I can get from 100 to 110 in 4 days.
For the first time in my life, I understand why people react they do when I talk about Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, you have no idea what we're talking about, do you?
Nope.
Yeah. Well,
I've got a long time.
This is like people listening to philosophy, like I was, a year or two or whatever ago. It's just like
It's not okay.
What are they talking about?
Yeah.
Thomas Aquinas, what? I mean, Hume can't do what? I can't understand Hume.
Wait, guys, we all have to be human. We have to be. This is so unhuman. It's like humane.
Lemette says he could do it in 2 days, and if I really pushed it, I could probably do it in 2 days. But I mean, I couldn't physically sit that long to play WoW to level up from 100 to 110 in 2 days. But I don't know. I've taken a massive break from it. I don't. Again, I got the Legion X pack, and I use gold to get the monthly, and the gold is a lot right now. The tokens are really high, but I don't have the. I'm spending more time learning about stuff. I mean, why do you think I wanted to have this hangout on evidentialism? Because I was learning about evidentialism the last couple of days. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be learning about certain topics. As Ozzy liked to say, I was upping my game, and I like the way Ozzy put that. I appreciate that, and I've been doing that for a while. Just reading about stuff and learning. So I think we're going to have more hangouts where I'm just going to be picking a random topic and then go, okay, let's discuss this particular topic, whether it be philosophy or other subjects. Probably philosophy, but would you guys like that? I mean, I think that'd be enjoyable.
That's dope.
I broke my fork.
No objection.
I'm just enjoying you saying that this would be an enjoyable topic. You think that it would be enjoyable when literally,
I know.
2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and a year ago, you're saying, I don't like philosophy. It's a waste of time.
I was the R and Raw
interest
approach.
in it.
Yeah, I was doing the R and Raw thing. Philosophy is for idiots. I don't know. By the way, I'm even growing the beard to show you that I'm actually appreciating philosophy.
Yeah. Well, there is a general rule that all proficient philosophers have to have weird hairstyles.
Yeah, well, true, and I'm letting my hair grow long.
I have no hair.
So what should be the next?
I have many hairstyles.
Did you shave
I've
your
gone
entire
through
body?
so many hairstyles.
Did Max shave his entire body, Max? He did. Oh my God, he did. He did. He shaved his entire body.
So can I see?
He didn't shave.
No,
he waxed it.
He did. He look at this. He shaved. Look at that.
Have like.
No, he had leg hair.
Look, there's leg hair. See?
You
Can
white.
you guys see it?
Yeah, you're white. You're Canadian. You need
No,
to
it's just the light here. The lighting.
I'm
needs
white too.
fluorescent.
I'm gonna get some sun this summer. This summer I'm gonna be laying out and tanning. So well, look at me now and then look at me at the end of the summer, and you should notice a significant difference because I will work on my tan this summer.
You should tan for charity.
Tan for charity, yeah.
Ironically, for cancer research.
Yes.
But what should be the next topic, guys? What do you think? What should I look into next?
Oh, definitely the definition of atheism.
Oh no, please no. We've had that all week. It's just
We should rank the philosophers from hottest to nottest.
Oh,
that's a good one.
Oh, there you go. How they would look in a dress.
There we go.
So basically, we're going to go Donald Trump on philosophy.
So the most attractive philosopher is definitely Camus, and the least attractive one, there's a lot of contenders for that.
Socrates.
No, you're wrong. It's Wittgenstein. As much as I don't like his philosophy, Wittgenstein is a dreamboat.
It's Wittgenstein.
What? He's a skinny, creepy German man.
Why can't you just limit it to living philosophers?
That is actually yeah.
I don't know, like
Plantinga.
Sure, if you like grandpas.
Have you ever seen Plantinga on the news in Arizona? I know I've shown you, Maximus, but I haven't. I don't know if Steve's seen it. It's pretty lousy.
No, I don't think so.
You want to explain it to him, Maximus?
So essentially, Alvin Plantinga got put on the news because his heater broke down, and
air conditioner. It's in Arizona.
Air conditioner, thank you. In Arizona, and they were saying.
Oh, I did see this. Yes, they did a thing on replacing his air conditioner, right?
Why?
Yeah, it's some fluff piece about some guy. It's like, oh yeah, local resident Alvin Plantinga.
Yeah, exactly. I saw that. I did see that. I'm like, wait a minute, they've got Alvin Plantinga, and they're like doing some weird shit about his fucking AC. I did see that.
So
yeah, no mention at all about his profession. Just just random resident Alvin Plantinga is getting his air conditioner fixed.
Yeah.
So let me get
Alvin Plantinga's voice. Like it's like so deep and like.
So news organizations will bring William Lane Craig on to talk or defend or argue with some random atheist that they find, like he did with The Amazing Atheist a couple of times.
Wasn't that terrible?
Yeah, that was awful.
When the Pope resigned.
But they won't bring on the man whom William Lane Craig references often.
I just love that I remember that like it was yesterday, and it was just so bizarre. The Pope resigned, so CNN or some other news organization gets on The Amazing Atheist and William Lane Craig to talk about it, as if these are the two guys you go to.
These are the go-to guys for the Pope resigning.
Some random guy from YouTube and some apologist
who's not even Catholic.
Yeah, a Protestant apologist.
Yeah, that's a little bit bizarre.
But maybe that's what we could do for the next hangout: is people representing opinions for which they don't care.
We'd all be trolls. You know what? He'd be a good hangout. He'd be a good hangout. How about this? How about we have a reverse hangout where everybody comes in and they represent an opinion that contrary to what they believe.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Well, I'm always doing that.
Kids scheduled the mock debate where it's like you allot somebody a topic. Just pick a random topic to debate, and you randomly assign the positions to individuals.
Seth has to argue now what a great President Trump is.
Seriously, though, try to do that seriously. It's an extremely good intellectual exercise because it forces you to look at your biases.
Right.
Oh, that's an easy position to argue for because it's all uphill from here.
Well,
you can only go up.
If I really had to,
hit rock bottom.
It wouldn't be that hard.
He's got a hot wife. That's a good reason to be president.
No,
he has a hot wife who won't touch him.
I'm sure
I think that the reactivation of the liberal anti-war left is definitely a good thing, something you wouldn't see necessarily, if at least to see a lot less of if Hillary was elected.
Yeah, I actually miss you guys. I remember sharing this with you. It was actually the prospect of Trump being less prone to warfare than Hillary would push me towards the Trump camp.
Seriously, what would be a good? Well, let's got politics real quick. But what do you think would be a really good hangout, guys? I mean, for philosophy, pick a subject. I mean, a type of subject, not so much a philosopher, but I mean, an idea in philosophy.
Limitations of government. I don't know.
Friendly atheism.
Friendly atheism. Atheism. We've
got
cookies.
Oxymorons, basically.
No, not at all.
Defining the term to even.
We already did.
You guys see that?
What does is mean?
No, free will.
That's actually an extremely interesting question in philosophy.
Because
there's like 4 or 5 different meanings of the word is.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I think I like culture. suggestion of free will.
Yeah,
I vote
but
for
see,
that.
I'm trying to. Okay, but free will has kind of been done to death, right?
No,
Determinism.
this
liberalism.
question is a good topic.
But I want something
I'm
that.
not joking.
What's that? No, I know you're not. But
The question of what is means is an excellent topic.
I don't.
Because they're like 4 or 5 different.
I don't want to.
I'm not joking.
I understand that. I don't think I'd be interested, to be honest with you. But I'm talking about stuff that we don't talk about that often, like evidentialism. When's the last time we ever talked about evidentialism? You know.
Today.
Right. So why I'm trying to find things that we don't discuss very often that most people would never be we kind of exposed to.
But let's like start off like general. So there's like the basic areas of philosophy, ethics, metaphysics.
Been there, done that.
epistemology,
Done that.
Well, I mean, like these are broad areas which have more specific stuff. There's philosophy of mind, philosophy of religion, philosophy. Well, we always do philosophy of language is always interesting. Like the question of what is means. That's a good one.
You're not gonna let that one go, are you, Frank?
The philosophy of science. We could do that. Do we talk about that much?
No, but
Wait,
I think you're kind of missing my point. There's a lot of you're kind of missing my point. There's a lot of terms in philosophy that just take a lot of sussing out. For example, I was thinking of one on things like noumenum and phenomenon, because I don't understand it very well, and so
say that 5 times fast.
No one does.
Yeah.
You can keep people honest. Like, I mean, I see a lot of people on both sides misusing the word objective to mean something like absolute.
Oh God, I hate that.
That's true too.
Me
Right.
Well, how about those are good ones too. The objective-subjective distinction is one that's often sussed around a bit. Like, Searle has a certain definition. Some people say it's a spectrum. That's some interesting stuff.
Could somebody argue there's not even a distinction in some cases? Like some people argue there's no analytic or synthetic distinction. Could there be something like there's no objective or subjective?
I don't personally know of anyone who does that, but there might be.
Yeah.
I actually reject the analytic-synthetic distinction.
Yeah, I mean, you're one of those people that do that. So.
Yeah. I don't think that it's a succinct distinction. I think it's self-refuting. I think that there's no real reason to actually hold on to it, even if there was one. I wrote a paper on Hume and the problem of induction, and I actually think the whole thing arises because of this really unhelpful distinction between matters of fact and what was the other one? One was matters of fact, and one was ideas of relations. That later evolved into the analytic.
It's one thing to say that there is that the distinction that as people work it out is wrong, but like there's clearly a sense to the meanings of the word. Like there's something different about propositions like 4 and the cat is on the mat. There's something clearly strange about like. So it's like.
All right. So in terms of that, let me explain my own position. I think that definitions are not something which are. I don't think definitions are things which don't have any connection to the world. That they're just these abstract things we make up as being, helpful instruments. They have usages. Rather, I think definitions, mathematics, these are things which we intuit from the universe itself.
Oh, mathematics
you're taking
would be good too, by the way.
Yeah. I'm more of a rational.
Definition is the expression of an essence of an object. Is that your view?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay. How about this one? How about this one? I got to go and talk about that then. How about native realism?
Naive realism?
Mm-hmm. Or native realism? Yeah, naive realism. Sorry, native realism.
Not native.
Naive.
Not native.
Like naivete.
Naive realism. I mean, that's a hard concept to wrap your head around.
Yes, it is.
Right.
It has to do with the problem of perception, which is a great skepticism. That's my area of expertise.
So I mean, these
I can talk all day about that.
So this is what I'm saying is when I want to come up with ideas, these are the topics I want to be able to discuss. Things that are not talked about often, that are difficult concepts. I have an understanding now of evidentialism I didn't have before. I wrapped my head around it. Okay, I still have some issues like with the whole noumenum phenomenon. I haven't got to the point where I've wrapped my head around it completely, even though I've had people explain it to me, like Hesperia tried to explain it once, and it kind of made sense at the time. Then I've lost it, right?
How about what else? So since this kind of caused a bit of interest, at least when I went up against the grain of thought here, about the analytic synthetic distinction, I would want to suggest that as maybe the topic of the next hangout
Okay.
because I think there's a lot to suss out there.
Okay, you know what?
Yeah, I'll go.
I'm okay with that. I think that's actually good. That's a good. I like that. Okay, let's do the analytic synthetic distinction. You know,
When is this
and
going to be?
what's that?
Yeah, that's a good one.
What, Frank?
When is the next hangout?
Oh, I don't know when it's going to be. It won't be that won't be this Sunday. I'm sure we'll have a different topic, but oh, maybe I don't know. Maybe this. I always do one on Sunday, so it'll be soon. Yeah.
But by the way, I should throw in there. One of the most popular reasons people reject the distinction is for empirical reasons, not rationalist ones. Whereas WVO Quine is an example of this. Whereas I'm more on the other side. I reject the distinction more because I'm a rationalist and less because I'm a hardened empiricist.
So name some people that we should catch before we talk about it. I mean, what should I read up on?
Right.
Aquinas?
Not
David. Oh, Quine. Okay, Quine.
Okay, here. Wait, let me. First, David Hume. Then
okay.
Immanuel
Kant.
Then the third person is Frege, and the fourth person is WVO Quine.
Okay.
And I think, what's his name? It starts with a C.
That's plenty. That's plenty. Don't overload me.
All right.
Yeah. So I like to brush up on these topics before we dive into them. So, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And I also want to. I wish EO was back here. I want to have a hangout on maths, but we got Uriah. I want to have a hangout one of these days where somebody can actually do writing and presentation and talk about logic. I'm trying to dive into learning a little bit more about predicate logic and learning a little bit more about stochastic logic and stuff like that. And I would love to have a hangout where we can actually like show, okay, this is the predicate. This is how we do this. I want to learn this, and I think that would be really interesting. For
Alex Malpass is probably like always willing to do stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I know. I know. Yes, but
also go ahead and check out Helena's channel. She's got a full thing with.
I know. I've watched it.
I also suggest Carnades.org, his channel.
Yeah, no, I've watched. I like Carnades, but I've watched Helena's videos and I've watched Alex. But see, the thing with Alex is, I do bug him a lot on Facebook, and he bugs me. I don't mean that bug, but I mean it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden I get a message from Alex. Right? It's just like, okay, I love that. Don't get me wrong. I love that to death. So we talk all the time, Alex and I, and I think he's just one of the most brilliant men I've ever known in my entire life, right? And he's so humble, just one of the most humble people you ever want to meet. And he's always available to answer questions, and I respect that. But you know what? I want to be able to learn it myself, and then kind of with a bunch of people. And then if I have any really kind of problems, I'm like, hey, Alex, I'm not getting this concept, and then have him available. I don't want to like bother him with the trivial stuff,
Right. One more person I would suggest you read up on is Lawrence Bonjour. He has a fantastic in his textbook on epistemology. I did. It's in the group chat.
Send it to me directly.
In that particular. In any case, in that particular textbook, he argues. He makes a couple of pretty decent arguments against the analytic synthetic distinction.
Okay.
Okay, so I found a pretty good topic. This is probably not for atheists because it's not really related to them, but like just to see religious people debate is a pretty interesting topic. Is that it's the idea that most religions worship the same deity under different names or perspectives, or they just worship.
Well, I think most would agree with that. I know Jade believes there's one God, and everybody just kind of like has their own version of him.
Yeah, that is called. What is that called?
I mean, I was just thinking like that might be a pretty good debate topic.
Yeah.
So, what is that? Synchronism or something like that?
So the idea is that like Zeus, for example, is just like the king of the gods, or like or the idea of Hades being thrown out of Olympus is just the same as Satan being thrown out of heaven. It's just the same kind of idea, but the same story, but different perspectives. Really, that kind of idea, or is it just separate deities?
The way you're articulating it, like there's like a historical thing called syncretism, I believe, which says that this is actually how the myths just sort of came together in a kind of like a mimetic evolution, and they just sort of effed with each other somehow.
Yeah,
but then there's also that it's like a psychological predisposition for us to have certain kinds of stories. I mean, like there's different ways of working it out, and some of them will have different. I mean, I guess we could just lump all together in one topic. But Like
By the
you
way,
either have a historical view or a psychological view or a philosophical view, and each of those three different views will have different arguments. Or theological, not philosophical, but like theological more specifically. Sorry.
By the way, Steve, I linked you the textbook. Just, you know what? Rather than reading all those authors dispersely, you could actually Bonjour sums them up quite nicely. You could just read his perspective, and you could go to the primary sources if you want.
Okay.
Do we all have to read this? Is this more homework, or is it okay if I don't?
I don't give a shit what you read. Just, I like to go into a topic at least, being a little bit familiar with it, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm already semi-familiar with some of this stuff, so I don't want to have to do more.
But like I said, I would like to do the math stuff too, and also, a general and EO maybe learn. We'll go over having a little bit about calculus, right? The fundamental theorem of calculus, how to do basic derivatives, how to do basic integrals. I don't know if a lot of people have an interest in it. Whatever. I mean, I would like to relearn the basics again. I mean, I understand calculus, but I think it's good to go over some of the basics again. Why these things work, why the fundamental theorems work. But yeah, I mean, I want to have educational stuff. I want to have videos where people say, okay, let me explain to you, how a Taylor series works, right? If I say, hey, I want to learn what a Taylor series or a Maclaurin series, let me show you what it is, right? And then go from there. Or say, hey, General, can you show us, what a differential equation is? Like, I mean, there's like one differential equation I could do in my head. dy dx equals negative y over x because it's separable and homogeneous and whatever, and it's not that hard to do. But other than that, I don't remember how to do differential equations, right? So, I like to have topics where somebody come in and say, okay, let's show how to do this. How do you find the constant of integration? What does it mean to have a constant of integration? Would you guys have no interest in that whatsoever? Or math, or do you want to do? You want like simple? You want like do simple fractions, Max, or something? Go back to the.
I'd have a tough time. I'd have a tough time following along with that. I'll be honest.
It would be nice to start like with an intro to calculus. And
all right,
then
so go back a little bit further. So how about maybe like quadratics? Quadratics is pretty easy.
I'm good with algebra.
Or linear algebra. Or do you want to go back to even algebraic manipulations?
I'll go back to algebra.
Like the only thing I ever forget is like the quadratic formula. That's the only thing I forget in algebra. Everything else.
Plus or minus b square root. 2.
It doesn't stay in my head.
Over 2a. It's 4 minus ac over. The determinant of 4 minus ac over 2a. That's your determinant, right? And then a lot of times you don't even have to even use the quadratic formula. You can actually find the roots by other means.
I remember like I can read math, but doing it's a bit different. I can read basic algebra. If that makes sense. I can't read calculus. It goes over my head. Like, what are you saying?
Well, there's different. See, the problem with calculus I have is a different notation, right? You got your Newton notation. You got Leibniz notation, or Leibniz notation. You've got there's like 3 different forms of calculus, and they all say the same fucking thing, but they look completely different.
Yeah, that's one thing I realized, that like there's a big when looking through Wikipedia and stuff, there's a kind of wall that you hit, and it's not the text. It's not that I can't understand the text. It's the freaking symbols, and it's like I'll be familiar with most of the symbols, and then I'll come across a symbol, and it's like, what the fuck does this mean?
Well, even the symbols, even the symbols can get complicated really fast. For example, like in nuke school, we had to learn some symbols, right? And one of the symbols you have to learn is sigma, which is summation. Okay.
I know that.
Okay, so you know what a summation symbol is, right? So if you say, your index, you say, x equals 1 to 2, and then you have x, you just stick in 1, and then you add it, and then it's 2. Okay, so summation. But there's also another symbol that's very confusing. It's called the pi notation, and the pi notation looks like a capital pi.
I know that. I know what that is.
Yeah, but
that's for multiplication, right?
It's the same exact thing. It's just only for multiplication rather than addition.
In logic, you have this stuff, the big and notation.
But I didn't learn the capital pi notation, and so when I was in college and stuff like that, I was like, I have no idea what the fuck this symbol is.
I guess pi is for product and the S is for sum. So
right. Right, but when you see that capital pi notation, a lot of people look at it and go, like, that's so complicated. Well, it's really not. It's just basically saying it's a summation, but you're just using a multiplication or product.
Well, isn't that the same with the integral s? It technically stands for summation or something like that. It's because it works out as
integrals and summations are integrally related to each other. Because when you're doing an integral, the areas underneath the curve, right? You have a Riemann. You're going to do what's called a Riemann.
Riemann, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so those.
I don't know what you're. I've heard the name. I don't remember what it is.
It's breaking it up into little. Okay, instead of taking the area underneath the whole curve, you're breaking it up.
Okay, so it's a limit as the. Okay, now I remember. It's the limit as those.
Limit, right. So you're taking the integrals of the individuals, and then that's going to give you the whole for the limit.
Weird.
Now, see, I do remember. I did take calculus. I mean, but it's not a subject.
Takes a little while.
Yeah, the brain has to kick in how to right. But see, if you ask somebody, ask me, hey, here's a calculus problem, go solve it. I'll be like, fuck no, I don't even remember the concepts. So
yeah, that's. But I think that's really important unless you're actually going to work. You just need to be able to. Yeah, it's scientific literacy as opposed to scientific ability.
Right, but that's why you get people like the Count Carposse when we look in and go, God, they don't know fucking jack shit. Yeah, I may not remember how to do these things, but at least I was exposed to it. They were never even exposed to any of this shit. You know. But I think those would be kind of cool hangouts for maths. Maybe a little matrix.
We need history hangouts. We don't have enough of that in our community. History. I mean, we touch on it. We don't have to, but that's a good topic.
Well, I would be
at least
somebody else's channel. I would be fine with that. I would be bored to death in doing a history thing. To be honest with you,
I think that'd be a shit show.
But you would like it, or you wouldn't? You being?
No, I think a history debate would be a shit show.
You wouldn't watch it, or you wouldn't care?
No, I'd watch the hell of it. I'd eat it up.
In theology debates, it's a big thing.
So how about did
I guess we couldn't really center it. It would always be a side topic.
Did the Holocaust really happen? Oh no, shit. Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, I don't want to.
Oh yeah, and then get spirit science in here, and then he'll rant on about Atlantis.
Oh god.
I'm down for spirit science coming in. That would be hilarious.
Yes.
That would actually be great. That would actually be great.
If you did a history topic debate, G Conscious would come in here and start warbling on about Egypt.
Yeah,
for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and how the white man stole all the secrets from the black man.
Well, I mean, if we're all about countering bad science and bad. I mean, I don't know if there's bad philosophies or whatever, inarticulate philosophy. We should be prepared to counter bad history too.
No, I'm not against it. It's just I would lose interest fast. If you said maybe okay, what's the history of the science? I mean, who great scientists.
Yeah, probably always gonna be a side topic.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Madame Curie, or we talk about Rutherford, or we talk about Pascal. Those would be interesting, right? Because they have interesting stories.
Well, maybe we can do this. Can we try to start making the side topics a bit bigger, and so maybe in the future we'll attract more historical minded people, and then we can at that time actually do major things, have that conscious thing in our whatever from now. I don't know. It's a way to attract.
Want to call it Galileo was wrong. A great debate discussion.
Galileo was wrong.
That's interesting.
Total clickbait, man.
Oh god, that is total clickbait. The people think we're promoting the movie The Principal.
Do you know how many flat earthers would end up joining that hangout?
No, I mean
all 23 of them.
Spherical geocentrists, not flat Earth geocentrists, rather. I mean, there's obviously an overlap, but
I'm telling you right now, if I change the name of this hangout, because do you guys know how to find live hangouts? There's a way to do it. Okay.
Yep.
It's not a great way. You have to actually just type in words like hangout or whatever, and then you go and you filter and you just go to live, and it shows you all the things that are live. It's not a great way of doing it. It's not all encompassing. But if there's any flat Earth hangouts, they always have flat Earth in there or whatever. But if I change the name of this hangout to flat Earth sucks big cock, I would have 100 viewers probably right now.
Everybody looking for big cocks. Come right
exactly. To you. It wouldn't be the flat earth. There's people like, ooh, big cock.
Surprisingly, a lot of people from Mississippi and Alabama.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Aren't they the ones that actually determined that the vast majority of their porn watching habits were transsexual and
the most racist areas watch the most interracial porn.
Yeah.
and the most moralist areas that are kind of
Hey,
stand in opposition to sexual progress.
it was in the news the other day, and I actually did find a study, and I have to pull it up later. But somebody had talked about this the other day about people. Remember, we were having a case that people that are extremely homophobic, there's a higher probability that they're gay. There's actually been a study that actually confirmed that. So that
There's
was
been a
something
few.
yeah, this is something I read in the news. And I thought
It's a
about
general
Jay because
trend.
Jay was bringing this up. So, there is evidence to support that hypothesis that if you are intimately anti-gay, you have a higher percentile to be, gay yourself among a general populace, right? It's not saying that you are, but the odds are more indicative that you might be. So,
Tommy Hall.
Hey, that's not very nice. Associating the gay community with Tommy Hall like that.
Ted Haggard is completely heterosexual.
Tom Ted Haggard. Yeah, okay, sure, I believe.
I
that
love
one.
that song.
Completely heterosexual.
Completely.
Fabulous. Completely. All right,
Reminds
so
me of a picture I saw of a Navy chief petty officer looking at the computer, kind of confused, like, I ain't gay or nothing, but I sure do love that gay porn.
I'm not gay, but two men haven't had it. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, okay.
I actually had a friend who took a countryside road trip with Ted Haggard. Apparently, the guy really knew where all the best bathroom stops were.
Well, yeah. Well, Jimmy Swaggart got busted 2 miles from my house back in Indio. Literally, my house is like here, and then there's this 2 miles north is the overpass, and he got busted picking up a hooker right down the street. Literally, I mean, I think I actually met the cop that actually arrested him. One of the cops. So
that's awesome.
You were pretty disappointed. The worst thing was she was your hooker.
Yeah, well, it was my mom, but it's beside the point. Before Ocean comes in here and says it.
I bet. I think it would be just like Ocean to just come in, do a your mom joke, and just get out.
Yeah, no, I've had a roommate that used to be kind of used to. She wasn't a street hooker, but she was a Craigslist hooker.
The most dignified of them. Yeah. Well, besides escorts.
Yeah.
So a classy hooker.
But her Pornhub thing is just it doesn't do her justice. I think it was a really bad filming, but whatever.
Okay. I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh my God,
I was just hoping an idea would pop up.
Whatever we talk about, no matter how highbrow or intellectual, it always degrades into porn, doesn't it? Always.
It's like new Q song.
It's kind of like philosophy. You go to Wikipedia, it all will always come back to philosophy. With my channel, it always comes back to porn for some reason.
That was a fun hangout to have. Where Dragnot could not believe that was actually true.
Yeah.
First word he tries typing into Wikipedia, hentai. And I just laughed. Because it's immediately going to take you to Japanese, which is immediately going to take you to language. And then from there, it's like you're 4 clicks away from philosophy.
Yeah.
And then only 3 more from porn.
Hey, no, there's one you could do, Steve. The philosophy of pornography.
The philosophy.
They're
Psychology.
actually.
I'm sure
there is.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
I mean, like, I think that there are ethics above pornography. So, like,
there's an entire university dedicated to pornography here in Canada.
The moment that Steve's hangouts actually become intellectually honest with themselves.
Oh.
You know, the reason why radical feminists disagree with other sects of feminism is they actually approach the question of pornography from more of a liberal Kantian tradition, wherein sex for money is a form of exploitation, whereas most other feminists usually come from either a Hegelian Marxist viewpoint,
which is empowerment, right?
Which is empowerment,
yeah.
or they come from another viewpoint of just pure anarchistic thought.
It's weird though. You're right. I know what you're talking about actually, and it is strange to think that there are so diversified schools of thought on that, right? And I think it could go either way, right? I don't think either school of thought is right. I think they're both right, or how should you say it? There's elements of each one.
It depends upon the circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. You know.
I think we have our topic.
But that's actually a good topic would be the Hegelian dialectics, because I know very little about that shit. You know what I'm talking about?
Well,
Neither do I.
here's the interesting thing.
Does Sam? I mean,
though.
does Max?
Yeah, here's the interesting thing, though. In terms of who maintains the moderate position, the reason why they're called radical feminists is because they believe that all porn is exploitative, no matter what
They think consensual sex is rape.
Not all of them.
Some.
So usually
transgender people are appropriating something from them. No.
Yeah, some of them do think that. So the reason why they're called radical feminists is because they descend from the liberal tradition, but they take things in a more radical or to the root sense. So a moderate liberal would say, look, whether porn is exploitative or not depends upon whether the woman feels coerced into doing so, or she feels that she is 100% empowered to it, wants to join in, feels like it's her decision as an adult.
She has autonomy, yeah.
She has autonomy, whereas the other group, no, it's inherently exploitative. Even in Marxist schools, there's an idea that anyone who's laboring under capital is being exploited. If you're happy with your job, but you're working for somebody, even if it's on an assembly line, then you only think you're happy. In reality, your labor is being exploited by the
Isn't that like what existentialists say with like people who haven't started doing philosophy? If you're not anxious, then you really are anxious. You're just denying it.
Maybe.
So we're all porn stars, really. We're wage slave porn stars.
Didn't you ever see my e-card that I wrote? Bitch, please. The only difference between you and a porn star is the presence of a camera.
Exactly. Some of the ones, there are some who would say that all forms of sex are, in a sense, rape. But then again, the only one I can name off the top of my head is what's her name, McKinnon. Some are just anti-prostitution, anti-pornography. Not all, but I think like you'd have to be so radical as to believe all forms of heterosexual sex are really forms of rape.
That just makes no sense to me either.
Well, it's rather funny that if you have a group of people who say that all sex is rape, if you told them to go fuck themselves, they'd say that that's the only kind of legitimate relationship that they could have.
Yeah.
Actually, no.
My other e-card, I have
that's
such
actually.
I have such a relationship with I masturbate so often that I actually changed my Facebook status to in a relationship.
Well, great, now I'm lost. Oh, I was going to say that's actually not the only one that's considered legitimate. For example, some radical feminists said that all women should actually choose to engage in only lesbian relationships if they're looking for something sexual, because only penis and vagina sex would be considered rape, not vagina with vagina sex.
Yeah. My other one
I remember that group.
My other one was
Are these like philosophical papers you're reading, or are these just like people online?
No, lesbian feminism was an actual movement back in the 1970s and the late 1960s, I think.
How about this one, Sam? I masturbate so often that I slapped a bitch and my hand had me arrested for domestic abuse. Oh, come on. Tough crowd. That's funny shit. Fuck off.
My knowledge of lesbian events is very extensive for reasons.
Yes, reasons.
Spending all that time with all those nuns.
I think Max is compensating.
Straight guys are a lesbian's best friend, apparently.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, pretty well.
Yeah.
And gay men are straight women's best friends, so why not?
That makes me wonder, can lesbians and gays get along?
We do not.
They bitch at each other so much, yeah.
Yeah.
There's this sitcom, Married Modern Family. They actually had an episode where they centered upon how there's no overlap because gay men and straight women have an overlap because they sleep with the same demographic. Straight men and gay men have a common demographic because they're the same gender, but there's no overlap between gay men and lesbians.
Guys, I've got to start bringing this to a close. People are going to be sleeping here soon, so... Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. By the way, Patreon... Damn, Seth. Hang on. Patreon is at the bottom. I did have a lot of declines this month. I mean, I'm doing okay, but I might have to get another Patreon drive coming up here because I had like 10 people get declined, which happens. People change the cards. Get mixed up or not working, whatever. But if you want to pick up a Patreon, slight support the channel, I do appreciate it. I'm trying to get some really good guests in. So I mean, not obligated to, but feel free that if you want to. And I think the next topic, like I said, in the philosophy, would be the analytical synthetic distinction. I think that's a good idea. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be this Sunday because I won't have enough time to prepare for it. But maybe. But we'll see. If not, we'll just pick something else out. And I usually give people one person the last word. I think Max have earned the last word. Max, what's the last word?
Well, the bird is the word. A bird. A bird is okay. I'm done.
You're never
Shut the
getting
fuck up, Max.
You're never getting the last word ever.